This is Have You Met? My guest today is known for his epic adventure running the Americas. He ran from Vancouver to Buenos Aires, crossing the Atacama Desert and the Andes, totaling over 17,000 kilometers. In the 6 years since he became an adventurer, he's covered over 32,000 kilometers and 25 countries, all under his own power and mostly solo. He won Scottish Adventurer of the Year 2016, and to top it all off, he seems to be a really good guy. Have you met Jamie Ramsay? So, Jamie, when and how did you start running?
Oh, when did I start running originally? I've always been kind of a runner ever since I was at prep school. I was running, and when I asked my mum for some photos once, one of the photos was me as like a 5-year-old running through the garden. So I've always been a runner, but it's kind of coming. So I was kind of track running at school and then cross country running. And it was probably when I was 12 that I first realized I could run. I used to be the guy on this we'd go on a school run every Monday, and I used to be the guy who walked at the back with my best friend.
Yeah.
The
that was probably me too.
The housemaster came up one day, and he literally, because you were allowed to in those days, he literally kicked me up the arse and said, "If you don't win this race, you're in detention." So I was like, Christ. So I started running, and I kind of overtook everyone, and I don't think I finished in the first place. But the next year, I think I was captain of the cross-country running team.
Yeah.
And it kind of went from there, and then it kind of as I got through senior school, we didn't really do athletics. It kind of disappeared. Yeah. And then when I was in London, I think like lots of people, bunch of boys sitting around having a Sunday lunch. Oh, let's do a marathon. So we all signed up for the Stockholm Marathon I think it was 2004.
Nice.
Yeah. We all wanted to go on a holiday and do a marathon. There was about 5 of us, and we went out to Stockholm, and we all went and did it. And I ran a little bit quicker than I thought I would. I thought, this is fun. I remember crying at the end of it.
Really?
I set out, and one of my friends were like, well, "How long are you going to take?" And I was like, 4 hours or something. And I came in at 3.5, having not really done training. And so I was alone in the stadium, and I remember just sitting down and then tears welling up, and I was like, whoa. I kind of felt proud that I'd achieved something. And
I was going to say, if it was proud of yourself, tears,
yeah.
Or pain.
It was like, wow, I didn't know I could do this. I like a lot of people after the first marathon. When I met up with my friend, said, never am I running that distance again. That was stupid. And then obviously 2 years later, I signed up for another marathon in Paris for the second one. And then I think adventure running, there's a kind of an addiction to it. And every time, it's definitely for me, if I do something, I get a feeling, a release, a return from it. And then doing the same thing again, I don't get that. I need to go bigger. So having done the marathon in Paris, I then went on and did a marathon around a safari park in Kenya.
Nice.
And that kind of took me to the next level. Then I kind of did a half Ironman. Then I looked to do more competition running.
Yeah, nice. So when you were doing the safari run, through the safari park, the marathon, what was that like? Did you have any animal encounters, any crazy moments?
No, it was a bit of an odd one, because I found the safari marathon. I think Ben Fogle had done it, and I'm a bit of a fan of Ben Fogle. And so I kind of went around telling everyone I was going to do the safari marathon, but I needed to do it with someone. And it was one of those easy things to say, I'm going to do it, and then you don't really have to do it. And then one of my friend's sisters called me out on it. She went, "I'll come and do it with you." What? I don't actually have to do this. So we booked our tickets, we booked our hotel in Nairobi, and then it was all going ahead. And then a week before, she pulled out because she got injured. So I was like, Christ, now I'm going to Kenya alone. Never been. So I flew to Kenya, and I went to the hotel. It was actually a really fancy kind of members club place. And people were like, "So how are you going to get to Lewa?" And I was like, "I drive." And they were like, "Well, you can't just drive through Africa without." And I was like, "Why not?" And they were like, "Well, I rented a car." They said, do you know where to go? And I went, no, I was going to ask someone. And they went, okay, well, go out over the first 2 roundabouts, turn left, drive for 5 hours, and you'll find yourself there. But you should not be doing this. So I drove by myself up through, and in my car, it was. I remember it said, with audio cassette player. And I was like, oh my dear Lord. So I had my first ever cassette that I'd ever bought, and I still have, which is Michael Jackson Bad. So I took Michael Jackson Bad, stuck it in, and felt like I'm on a road trip. And I have to do Michael Jackson Bad on loop. Really gets boring after a while.
Yeah. How long did it take?
It took me 5 hours just listening to that.
To get bored?
Oh, no, to get bored, it was like the second time round.
Oh, really? I could have gone at least 3 times.
Yeah, like an hour into the journey, I was like, wow, and there was nothing on the radio. So I arrived, and it was one of those weird races where most people were there on like a corporate retreat to like BlackRock and all these big banks, and they would all stay in these really fancy tents, and then they'd go on safaris and all this kind of stuff. I rocked up with a tent and a jet boil, and said to the people, like, where can I camp? And they were like, over there. So I went and set up my little tent, and I'd arrived early, so none of the other stupid people who were camping had arrived. So I was just by myself the first night. And I remember this noise all the way, kind of, boom. I slept all night. I woke up the next day and I was like, what was that noise? And the guy was like, oh, that was a lion just across from your tent. It's like, all right. And they were like, yeah, did you not hear the elephants walking through? And I was like, what? So no, but actually for the race we didn't get to see much because they put a helicopter up, and it's a double lap. So they put a helicopter up, and then it goes round the track and scares all the animals away. But I remember doing it, and I found this guy. I was still pretty new to running. I found this guy who was like wearing all the right kit. It's like, I'll just get behind him and I'll just follow that guy and go at his pace. He did the first lap, and it came in, and he peeled off for the half marathon. I was like, what? I'm going to do this again? And I was like shouting, like, what's the time? I didn't have watches in those days. And it was like 1:30 or something. And I was like, I've just done a 1:30 half marathon. I'm in the middle of the heat, hills, off-road. I managed to stumble around in just under 4 hours. But
but you overdid it in the first half.
Yeah, the only way I got to see animals, though, was quite cool. Like all the rich people were going off on their fancy pants safaris. And I didn't know what to do. So there was a couple of guys. There was one called Julius, I think, who were the guys cleaning the loos and all that kind of stuff. And I walked up to them. I was like, hey, guys, where do you guys live? Because there's like no houses here. They were like, we walk here every day. It's like, I was like, where from? And like 10K. I was like, it's insane. I was like, I'll drive you home. Like, I've got a car. Let's have a deal. You show me some animals and I'll drive you home. So we went on this round. They showed me like buffaloes and giraffes and zebras and all this kind of stuff. So that was my safari.
Nice. That little private safari.
Private safari with a couple of guys who didn't wear deodorant. Like, but apart from that, it was actually, it's great because the running was the reason I was there, and I enjoyed the running, but actually all the memories of the things that were around the running. So the journey there and the kind of the interactions with the kind of people who work there and stuff. So
I bet that's kind of the story of your life or your career in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, there's kind of the human power to travel is just the conduit from one place to another. It's just how you get around. It's and I'm sure when we get onto the big adventure, we can talk a bit more about the kind of what running brings to an adventure over other means of transport. For sure. So after I'd done this Labour Marathon, I kind of then looked up, like, what's next? I need to do something bigger. So that was there's a Marathon des Sables. And I was kind of like, I can't afford it. I don't really want to spend £3,500 to go to the Sahara Desert with 1,500 other people. Yeah. So I found this one called the Jungle Marathon in Vietnam and decided that would be what I would go and do. So it was 240K over 6 days, I think, through the jungles in Vietnam. So I was like, I'll do that. Bought my flights, bought my kit, did all my training, started raising money for charity. And then I was like a month beforehand, they cancelled the event. I was like, Well, and they were like, oh, don't worry, we'll get you free places into this other event in the Gobi March. It's like, but it cost £2,000 to change all your tickets and everything. And I was like, I was really disheartened. I was like, what do I do? And then I thought, solid, then why do I need anyone to organise the race for me? Why don't I've got the tickets, I've got the kit, I've done the training. So why don't I just fly to Vietnam and run 240k by myself? So I just jumped on the plane, flew to Da Nang, jumped out with my backpack, and then the next day started running and ran 240 kilometers by myself down the side of a highway, going to these little villages and stuff, and just eating food on the side of the road, like street food and stuff. And that was probably the moment, unknown to me at that time, was the moment that sparked what became kind of 33,000 kilometers of adventuring I've done since.
Oh, the whole of it, yeah. That was when you were hooked. That was the moment you're like, yeah.
I didn't realize I was hooked until later.
Subconsciously.
Yeah, there was a moment where I was forced to pause to reflect, and it was that moment I went back to.
Yeah.
So that was my last big run before I actually quit my job to become an adventurer person.
So how long before you quit your job, or before you decided to quit your job, was that run?
So that was June 2013, and I handed in my notice on like the 1st or 2nd of April 2014. That was just under a year.
So you stuck it out for a little while after. But...
Well, it's kind of like I went back to work, and you just get back into the routine, and I kind of forgot that kind of feeling dwindled away, and I fell back into the kind of
the monotony
work, and I got promoted to partner, and it was kind of like just the thing just kept on trudging along, and I was like, yeah, I got back in this machine. And then I found a video the other day. It was New Year's Eve 2014, sitting in the loo of a pub, absolutely off my face. Recorded myself on my phone, saying, and this year I'm going to quit my job, and I set out what I was going to do while I was drunk, not knowing that I was actually, because I was drunk, was why I would then end up quitting my job, but never mind. So, yeah.
That's like your inner self speaking there when you're really drunk, right?
Yeah.
You know, that's like your unconscious self speaking to your conscious self, trying to give a message.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's and how hard was that decision to come to, like quitting your job to go and just chase it?
Quitting the job.
And also, sorry, but also, how long were you thinking about it before you did it? How long were you like, oh, should I, shouldn't I, can I, can't I?
So I think it was November 2013. I went out with my mates, and we got rather drunk, and at about 3 o'clock in the morning, everyone was going home, 3-4 in the morning, and I lived in Fulham. I was here, and my work was here, and I was like, why go back home to go back to work? Why don't I just go straight to work? So I kind of just jumped in a taxi, went back to work, went to I used to always run in and cycle in. So I always knew I could just lock the door in the shower room. So I went into the shower room, slept on the floor in there, and then woke up the next morning and just kind of literally peeled myself up on the sink and looked in the mirror and went, hey, this is not healthy. Yeah. This is not like why. Yeah. And kind of I stumbled down, got to my desk, and was like, I am not happy. I'm not fulfilled. This job is not giving me anything that I want. It's just something that's paying my bills. I'm not getting. It's not a bad job. It's just not a job that was working for me. And I looked around the office, and I was like, I don't want to be these people when I'm 60. You know, the guys who don't see their parents, who don't see their wives, who are alcoholics, who are unhealthy. I don't want to be that person. So it was at that moment that I then thought back to, when was the last time I felt happy, fulfilled, content? And it was that moment of finishing the run in Vietnam. It was like sparked in my mind. It was like, that made you happy. So why don't you investigate how to get that back again in a more meaningful way in your life? And so obviously it was November. I had this kind of epiphany at work, and then it was New Year's Eve, I kind of told myself I was going to do it. And then I kind of went to the pub and I thought, right, if I'm going to quit my job, I have to be away for at least a year to make it a worthwhile reason to quit. So what's a year? So that's 365 days. And how am I going to travel? Running is the thing that I'm into at the moment. So how much can I run? And 30 kilometers a day, did the math, it's 11,000 kilometers. And I'm like, so I'm going to go running for a really long distance. And I started telling people, like, I'm going to go and do this. And the way I work is I find the people who are least important to me and I bounce the idea off them and I get their feedback. And the feedback was kind of positive. It was like, and then at the same time, I was formulating plans. Like, would I run around the world? Would I run down from Scotland down to Cape, the Cape in
Cape Town,
South Africa? And, you know, I immediately had to put those kind of aside, like running around the world. It was like, well, war zone, dangerous, language, visas, money. I couldn't work out in my head for my first adventure how I would be able to do that. So I came up with the idea of going from Vancouver to Buenos Aires. It looked like a nice route. It was like 2 languages. British passport will get you into every country without visas. So you don't have that added admin aspect to the adventure. So I started floating that idea with people, and people were like, "Oh, if anyone can do it, you can." Wow, I didn't think people would actually support me on this. So I slowly went up, you know, friends, close friends, best friends, brothers, parents, and then quit my job. So
at that point, just to jump in quickly, at that point, the biggest run you'd had was what, the 6-day jungle one, 240k, or was it? Was it something else? That was the biggest one.
That's the longest consecutive run I'd done.
And so, like, how did you go from that mentally in your head? How did you go from like, okay, so I ran 6 days, 240k, whatever, you know, in Vietnam. But how did you make that jump to like, I can consider doing like, you know, what's in essence like a third or half of the world? Like, was that process? Were you like, did you think like maybe that's too much, or were you just wanted to really challenge yourself in like a huge way?
I'd love to say that, because that sounds really positive. I challenged myself. It was more the other way. I needed to get away from I needed to get away from where I was rather than get to somewhere new. I knew that if I stayed where I was at the beginning of a downward spiral. I managed to pick it as soon as it was happening. I was like, this is I'm trying to numb the pain of the job and the life by doing excessive amount of exercise and an excessive amount of hitting the pub afterwards. And I knew I could see the detrimental effect. And when I did public relations, so it's really easy to go to the pub and have drinks, and you can disguise going out as work, and it's not. So I kind of cottoned on to this, and so I told myself, like, let's go and see, can you run 10k every day for 30 days? And do you have the commitment to do that? And this was before I kind of quit my job or anything. So it was a 10k every day, and I was like, look, I can do that. So and it sounds weird, but when I decided the route, I never really looked at it and thought that's not possible. Everyone else, a lot of other people will come up and hand their free advice to you, going, you can't do that, it's impossible, you can't run here, you can't run there, you can't do this, you can't. You're like, well, it's either this or I stay doing this, and I don't want to do that anymore. So it wasn't. Sounds really bizarre. Like, you speak to lots of, I think, like adventurers who I follow and admire, and quite often they're like, well, it took me 2 years to plan this, and it cost this much money, and it sounds very much like they're trying to stop people doing it. They're like, you can't. You have to have a lot of time and a lot of money, and you've got to have all these skills and to be able to do what I do. I was just like, I bought a baby pram because I looked up on the internet and found, I think it was Jamie McDonald got given one when he was running across Canada.
Right.
And I was like, oh, he got given one because he went with a backpack, and someone was like, that's stupid, you should have a baby pram. I was like, I need a baby pram. I think I bought the same one as he had. It's like, and then I was like, when you get to packing, you're like, there's not really that much you can put in it. So whack in your camping stuff, your sleeping stuff, your clothes, and then a whole bunch of crap which I didn't need. If I redid it now, it would be completely different. But and then, like, everything just was, you just common sense. You're just like, well, what am I going to do? And break it down and make it easy. And the last thing you can do is, if you think about it too much, you freak yourself out. So it was kind of that weird, when you were trying to find people to help you give you kit, you have to go, it's going to be this big, it's going to be this hard, it's going to be this impressive. And then you have to kind of go home at night and go, it's really not that hard, it's really not that impressive. It's not, it's really simple. And you have to kind of play with this in your mind, because you don't want to turn up on day one and go, oh crap, I can't do this. So bizarrely, I quit my job in April, and then I finished working on the 28th of July, and on the 14th of August, I was standing in Vancouver about to run.
Really? So there was not really like any break period. You're not like, oh, I'm going to have 2-3 weeks to relax. No,
I quit my job, went to a wedding, and then came back, packed my bags, flew the next week, and then started 2 days later. I was like...
That's epic, that's very cool.
But there was like very little planning. First day, I had no idea where I was camping that night. I was standing in Vancouver on I think it was a Monday morning, I remember choosing the time. So I chose to start in the center of Vancouver so I could go in to the starting place on the commuter kind of run. So everyone was in dark suits. And then I was walking through the middle, pushing my pram with a bright yellow t-shirt on, the red hat. And it was like, I wasn't planning it, but it was like kind of like a beacon going through. It's like, I'm different from you. I've broken away. While you're all going to your office, I'm just going to run to Canada, to Argentina.
Leaving your past behind as well. Like, but that was kind of,
It was kind of fun. But I had no idea what I was doing that night. Actually, I had no idea about anything. I set fire to the local park I stayed in that night because I didn't know how to use my cooker. I'd never set my tent up. It was a catalogue of disasters on that first day. I ran too far. I ran like 40k. I probably should have run like 20 to ease my way in. I didn't know. I bought the wrong fuel for my cooker. I kind of didn't know how to set up my tent, and it was all just errors. But when I got to bed and fell asleep that night, I was like, I did it. I ran a marathon distance, still happy. It's good. And at that point, I thought it was going to take me 600 days. So I was like, just have to do it 600 more times, and that'll be it. And at that point, you just have to realize it's a job.
Yeah. And
if you weren't running, you'd be sitting in an office. So you just take the work ethic and you just take it to your adventure, and you just,
And I guess it could have been easy to slip into because you built it up a lot, I would imagine. You built up the trip as this is what I want to do. This is what's going to make me happy. If it was me, I probably would have been sitting there in my tent the first night saying am I really happy? Is this really what I wanted to do? Did I do the right thing? Freaking out. Did you have any of that second guessing, or was it just this is it. I feel good. I feel content.
I think I was just excited about what was to lay ahead. I really didn't. A lot of people ask me this. I don't really think very much about it. I just did it without really. Yeah. There wasn't really.
There must have been once.
It's just there's so much you have to kind of run through in your mind every day.
That's true. Yeah.
That you don't think about the other stuff, and so and actually, during the course of the adventure, I had to pull myself back from that because I realized I was missing the world around me. I was I was getting up, and I'm quite. When I'm on an adventure, I'm quite structured. So you get up, you pack up your tent while you're in the tent, you pack everything away. Then you take all your bags out. Then you get out your tent, you set up your cooker. While your water's boiling, you take down your tent and you pack everything up. So and everything's structured, and then you got to run, and then you're going to have lunch, and then you have to find somewhere to camp. And that is the day. And I forgot sometimes to but this is really pretty. You have to look around. You have to speak to these people, and you have to interact, because that is where that's where the gold dust is.
Yeah. That's living.
So I remember watching some whales. I think it was called Patrick's Point or something. Just watching some whales, having a bagel and drinking some coffee in the morning. I was I have to do more of this. This is the stuff that's going to make me happy. The running's great, and I get a runner's high every time I do it, but it's the, watching a whale or meeting some people or accepting some hospitality. That's where you enrich yourself.
Yeah, definitely. How long did it take you to really like I don't want to say realize, but really realize that, really to kind of, because you say you started off a bit robotic, like running as far as you could run and whatever. So how long did it take you to really be like, no, I want to soak this in as much as I can? Or did you kind of know, like, was there never this big epiphany moment with it?
I think there was a constant, like, routine. Right, no, you got to be better at routine. I think the more comfortable you get, the more you interact with around. And then if suddenly it gets hard, you retreat back to what you know and you do it the way you know to do it, and then it gets easy again. But it was difficult because I kind of didn't think it out, but it kind of how it happened. That I had America, the USA, was the first 2,900 kilometers, so everything was English, everything was easy, everything was. It was just like it was like a training ground to do that first 2,900. And then when I got to I can remember I made a video, San Diego. I thought, because in my head, the way I kind of like to think about things is a lot of people ask about failure and how do you deal with failure? And my way of dealing with it was to set up success parameters along the route that at any point I reached one of those, that was worth quitting my job for. So just get it. I like to tell myself that if you just get to the start, you've succeeded. And then the second one, if you get to the end of the USA, you can go back and tell people you just ran the length of the USA. It doesn't matter if you did Argentina. That's still impressive. You ran 2,900 kilometers. And I remember getting to San Diego thinking, am I not meant to feel something? Is there not meant to be some kind of like a wave of like satisfaction, a realization of achievement? And I was just standing there going, I don't really feel anything. Like I feel good. Like I'm glad I've done it and I'm really happy, but I thought there would be more. And then I think the adventure really started when I crossed over the border into Mexico. I've been sitting there for 80 days with people going, don't go to Mexico, you'll get your head chopped off. Don't go to Mexico, the police will extort you. Don't go to Mexico, everyone will steal all your stuff. And I was like, and then I crossed over the border and the Mexican people are amazing and everyone is so nice and friendly. The police would like show me the safest routes to go and allow me to go on highways because it was a hard shoulder. Like, they were lovely. It was this kind of, suddenly I was in a foreign land doing an adventure. And then it all kind of clicked together at that point. That's when I felt the adventure started. It was at that point.
Yeah.
So
was it the border moment, or was there something shortly after that made you think, this is it now?
It was the first day when I was in Mexico. I crossed the border in the evening because I'm staying with some guy I'd met in San Diego, and he wanted to do an interview. So we did an interview, and then he took me around. Did you know that Caesar salads were founded in Tijuana?
In Tijuana? I did not know that.
So anyway, he showed me where he wouldn't let me eat there, but he showed me the restaurant. And then the next day he said, that evening he goes, which route are you taking? I'm going down there, around here. And he goes, oh, no, you can't go there. That's like really dangerous. He said, well, we'll work it out tomorrow. So we obviously drank too much. And then the next morning I woke up and he had to go to work and I was running and I was like, which way am I meant to go? And he was like, you'll be fine. Just go that route. And I was like, what?
What did you say last night though?
I ran down this road and everyone was lovely to me. And like, it was it was dangerous. And then it was at that point, I kind of realized that I wasn't a target. People,
the world's not out to get you.
I look like a hobo pushing a baby stroller down the street. Who's going to rob me? I didn't have flashy stuff hanging around. Again, I had a Union Jack hanging off my back, but people were there. I think when they see someone running solo, there's a kind of compassion. They want to help you. So all the way through America, I got to America thinking I am going to hate America because they're all lots of Americans. They were the nicest people in the entire world. Everyone tried to help me, and people would just pull over, hand me water, give me cash, ask me to stay the night, all that kind of stuff. And then when I got to Mexico, it was all the same. But it's just the different language, the different environment, the different shops, the kind of, it was just everything was a bit more alien, which made it, it gave more satisfaction to the days. So
Yeah, definitely. And I bet it got more real as you went down as well.
Oh
Like
yeah,
as
got
you
to
kept
some of
going
the
south,
places
just
like just like little experiences that you wouldn't have, like staying in a hostel that turns out to be a brothel, or running.
well, it was like an active brothel while you were
Oh
staying
no,
there.
so I got into my room. I got a room. I knew it was a dodgy place, and I went, but I
Yeah.
had chronic diarrhea all day, and I was like, I can't actually
Oh,
physically carry on. So I checked it.
yeah.
It was the cheapest, a 5-star hotel in this crappy place. So I got to the crappy place, and then you heard like the people. A couple of guys turned up, then the girls, and then they all got drunk, and then they went to their rooms, and then they all just banged away all night.
That must
It's
have been a
like
rough night.
also slightly jealous because when you're running solo running, like the opportunity for nookie is very, very like,
Yeah, when you're trying to do
non-existent.
that many miles a day.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can imagine.
non-existent. So you're kind of jealous as well of the people banging next door. But there's just lots of different moments, and it just I just fell in love with the run. And I'm not saying there weren't days when I'd wake up and it was just I couldn't find the motivation. Those days happened.
Tell me about those days.
Oh,
Like, tell me about it, because everybody has those days. Probably most people have more than you. You see me like as a, good at getting up your head, like getting your head switched on and everything like that, motivated and, But what were those days like? How did you deal with that? Like on the worst of it, when you just felt like you wake up and you're like, oh,
there were days. So you'd feel it, but I'd have built up the knowledge of how to get over it, luckily, before it really got the difficult days arrived. But I remember like days
Yeah.
I was at Nazca in Peru, and I woke up and I was running into a desert, like a proper nothing, just nothing. And the wind was
Yeah.
horrendous. It was blowing into my face, and it wasn't a sand desert, it was grit. So the grit was all flying into your face and hitting your teeth.
I think I saw this on one of your
Is
vlogs.
it, and I ran
Maybe.
7K, and I was like, I can't go. I can't do it. But I
Yeah.
knew that I could do it. I knew that the reason was because I'd taken a day off, and I actually don't think I did take a day off. I'd chilled out the day before and eaten too much sugar. I woke up the morning, I'd eaten a lot of sugar because I was in a town, and it was just hit my energy levels massively. So I went, and after 7K, you just learn how to, you just draw a line under that part of the day. I walked into a place, I sat down, I had a meal, and I said, right, we're starting again. And you start again. I ended up running 50K that day and camping behind a little tiny shack on the side of a road where the lady cooked me some deep fried something with rice and flies.
Deep fried
I had
something.
deep fried flies on top of it. And like I remember camping that night. And I watched Walter Mitty that night in my tent.
Really?
I was
Nice.
flying around. I was in the middle of the desert. I remember watching Walter Mitty, and by the end of the film, I was like, it's one of my favorite films. And I got to the end, I was like,
Yeah.
I want to be on an adventure. I want to go. And I was like, okay, you're already on an adventure. You're already about one of the most inhospitable places around here. Like,
Yeah.
so you just knew how to reset. The other thing I had was, if it ever got hard, is I would sit down and I'd think, I'd tell myself, I'd say, you made a decision to be here. Like you were here, you were unhappy, you made the decision to be here because you think this is where you're going to be happy. Now you can decide to quit at any moment, but you go back to that life. Or you get up and you carry on, and that's your decision. And normally that would take like 2 minutes. I would just sit down and go, okay, I just got to get around, got to carry on.
Yeah.
And the further you get into the adventure, the more you learn that something will happen that day that will pick up your spirits. You don't know what it is, but like a car will pull over. Like so many lovely things. Like a car would pull over, and there'd be a couple, and they'd give you a chicken sandwich and a Coca-Cola. And they'd say, we saw you on the road, we drove to the local town, we bought you some food, and we came back to give it to you. And you're just like,
Yeah.
would I?
Yeah.
Would I do that if I saw someone running around here? Like, and when you get that kind of act of kindness, you're like, no, I must keep going because I want that act of kindness tomorrow. and I won it the next day. Won it the next day.
Yeah. At that moment, I think I probably would have cried with your level of exhaustion and that nicer gesture. I would have just like broken down in tears. Oh my God, you gave me a chicken sandwich.
I promise you wouldn't. You wouldn't. You'd be like, oh my God. Oh. I was very lucky on my adventure because of my sister, actually. So my sister, selfishly, before I left, her now husband came up to me and said, Jamie, just before you go, I just want to let you know that I'm going to ask your sister to marry me. Oh my God, it's amazing. Yeah. And he goes, but don't say anything. I then took him something like 65 days of my adventure before he actually proposed to her. So at this point, I was like going, has he fallen out with her? Has he changed his mind? And then suddenly they got engaged. And then selfishly, they decided to get married right in the middle of me doing my adventure.
No way, while you're away.
I was away. So I was like,
God.
So I don't like, and this is probably the moment I made the decision, and I've stuck with it ever since. I don't do firsts. I don't do records. I don't care. Like, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this for recognition of other people. I'm doing it to prove to myself I can do it and to be happy. So we got chatting, my dad, he said, I'll pay for your ticket. So I'll get to Panama, fly home, do the wedding, come back, carry on for South America, split it into two. Yeah. And that gap in the middle just made me realize how precious this adventure was to me. Because I came from the road being by myself, suddenly flying back to my family all around me, hundreds of people, things like flowers being really important at a wedding, and like we got like work. And I can remember sitting, like, have family lunches. I'd go inside and just sit in the living room by myself and just like, I need to be alone. And everyone's like, oh, it's going to be really hard going back. And you're like, no way. Like, I don't want to be here. I want to be, that's where I want to be. That's where I'm happy.
Yeah, I'm still there.
Yeah. So as soon as I flew back, I was like, this is where I belong. This is where I need to be. Which is a little bit sad because it makes me realize, and confinement's doing it as well. I'm a normal, pretty balanced, grounded guy, but I am more happy when I'm on an adventure and it's horrible and it's difficult and it's hard and it's gnarly. I'm happier there. Sitting around, I get so bored. I switch off, and it's like it's the adversity that switches me on. It engages me. So,
were you always like that, or was that like when you started the Americas? Is that when that kind of came?
Well, I don't know, because I've never experienced it before. So if I could go back and change, actually, two things on this. If I could go back and change my life, I'd love to have started at the age of 15 and do amazing things all the way up till when I was 34 when I started. However, I do firmly believe that every decision and interaction you have in life delivers you at a place. I am very happy with where I am in my life right now, and what I have coming on the horizon is exciting. So even if anything in my past was bad, I had to endure it to be where I am right now. So therefore, all the relationships that went wrong, all the bad decisions I made at work, all the kind of little mistakes I should have taken an opportunity I didn't. It was by doing that allows me to be here, and all I can do now is learn to make the decisions better going forward. And so I was starting off on a point here, and I can't really remember what it was. Anyway,
it was good. Anyway, I mean, it holds up.
So no, you have to ask me a question now.
Yeah, well, let's go back to Mexico. So, like, how many K is that? Like, how many K was your stint through Mexico, your circuit?
I want to say 4,800, I think.
So that was a big chunk.
The two big countries were Mexico and Peru. They were the big ones.
Yeah.
Right, okay. And then US and Argentina. But Mexico was exciting because it was the first time I got confronted with something that was like truly scary. And that was, I think I was in a town called El Rosario, and I ran out. I think Six Nations were playing, because my sister was sending me the other day.
So like February, March sort of time.
Yeah, which was beautiful weather. It was lovely. I arrived, and there was a sign that said 300 and something kilometers, 367 kilometers to the next petrol station. I was like, in my head, I'm like, I mean, there's nothing for 300, there's nothing. And I have a baby stroller with like a gallon of water and some food. Like, this is really going out there. So that was exciting. And that was the moments again where people would pull over and just fill your water up. And if there's a road, there's going to be something, even if it's not advertised, there will be something. So yeah, Mexico was wonderful, and Baja California in particular, because I don't care about the firsts. I can make changes as I'm going. Yeah. So I was running, and I was going to go over to San Diego, and then I was going to head east and then go around the mainland all the way down through Mexico. But I got told by so many people, like, go to Baja, go down Baja. So I went down Baja, and when I got to the end of it, I got to La Paz, and I was presented with the problem, which I hadn't really thought about, which was, how do I get to the mainland? Because the Sea of Cortez is in the way. And I kind of sat there thinking, like, do I fly? I was like, well, it's really expensive. It's Christmas time. So that doesn't work. And it's also against the kind of, I'm running. I can't really jump on an aeroplane. Yeah. So I was like, do I take a ferry? And I was like, that sounds about as equally as bad. And then someone said, if you go down to the docks, you can ask, you can hitchhike on a sailing boat or a private boat. So I went down to the harbour and kind of got onto the local radio station. Every morning, 8 o'clock, they do this little call. All the boats tune in, and there's like any other business, and I jump on going, hi, I'm British guy running to Argentina. Anyone fancy giving me a lift? And I kind of ran and talked about the charities I was working with. And this guy, everyone was like, this takes quite a long time. You could be here for a week or two. And the next day, some guy walked up to me and said, oh, we're leaving in a couple of days. We'll take you across. And I asked him why, and he said it's because of the charities you're supporting. They mean something to me. So I then got to spend 7 days with this guy and his son sitting on a boat. It's amazing.
Really? 7 days on the boat?
What we did, like, it's like 3 or 4 days. Yeah, because this is again, right. So we kind of tried to go out, and then the storm came, so we came back, and then we went out the second time, crossed over, we got to Mazatlan, and they were like, right, you can get off here. We're going to this really amazing island just a little bit further south, and then we're coming into Puerto Vallarta. You're more than welcome to come. And I was like, I can run, or I can come to one of the most amazing islands. I'll come to an amazing island. So I stayed. We went into this little island called Isla Isabel, and it was like going to a kind of Jurassic Park kind of island. It was like a research center which had run down and had been taken over by some fishermen, and there were like blue-footed boobies and frigate birds and iguanas, and it was an amazing time. So yeah, loved that.
Yeah, that sounds super cool. Did you like sleep on the island, or you just visit for the day?
No, we slept on the boat.
Okay. That's cool though. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And so back to the running. Like so Mexico, what were the kind of biggest, most memorable things that happened down through Mexico, except that? Like anything else that's worth touching on?
Mexico. God,
I bet they're all blurred together. Are they all the?
It's really hard. I'm writing a book about it at the moment. I've been going like full heat steam ahead, then stalling. Then I'm on a stall at the moment. Yeah. But oh my God, like there's too many things to be able to pick out. Like, because to me, when I'm writing the book, if someone gave me an ice cream, that was like one of the most amazing things in the entire world. But when you've written it about 25 times in a book, like someone gave me an ice cream, you're like, I think people might get bored of this quite soon. But in Mexico, it was just people. It was just the kind of, for me, it was such a new country. I was just getting to grips with living in a Spanish world, the temperature, meeting cool people. I mean, like, I had people I'd met them at camp next to them for one night, and then the next day they'd come down in their camper van, they'd ask where my halfway point was. They'd stop there, wait for me, cook me lunch, give it to me, and then I'd run on, and they'd meet me at the end of the day and cook me dinner, and,
Really?
And Jackie, amazing people.
Yeah.
So, it's difficult to pick out anything in Mexico which was like...
stands above.
Because it was all amazing. I loved Mexico.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet the whole trip's like that, like trying to pick out, and I bet all the time you're coming up with new ones, like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I forgot about this,
Yeah.
and that happened. And did you learn Spanish like before you got to Mexico? Because I heard a couple of places that you were like listening to it as you're running.
Yeah, I
And,
tried.
like in,
I didn't manage.
did you?
Yeah, I did 9 months in Spanish-speaking country, or a year in Spanish-speaking country. Still couldn't speak Spanish. Yeah.
Oh really?
And it sounds like I'm just being really lazy, but it's because actually you're by yourself the whole time. The only time
I wouldn't say it's lazy anyway. It's hard.
it's hard, but the only time you
Languages are
speak to
hard.
people is to ask, do you have a cheap hostel room, or can I camp,
What directions?
outside, and where can I buy food? And that's pretty much it. And then you're by
Yeah,
yourself, and you're at the end of the day, you're too tired to speak to people.
yeah,
So
yeah. That makes sense.
yeah,
Well, I get you got the basics, as in like you could run through Spain and you'd be
yeah,
fine.
yeah, yeah. I can ask, I can get, I've got everything, but I wish I had. But
Find water and
my
food.
brain is not wired for languages very well, so I find it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. How's your French, by the way?
Yes, it's great. I'm learning. I'm learning.
It's tough,
It's
isn't it?
pretty tough.
I'm in the same boat. It's hard. I can absolutely get by,
Yeah.
but if I was to take a test in like all the tenses and this and that, the other,
Yeah. I can do the odd meet. I do meetings and stuff in French. If I'm face to
yeah,
face, I can do it.
yeah, it's much better face to face. But when there's like a group, that's when I'm like lost. If there's like multiple conversations
Yeah.
and people all around, and I'm being asked, but I'm expected to, yeah, that's too much, too much. Anyway, so on your run, right, you got through 17 pairs of shoes.
Yeah. 17.
Like, so first, like, how did you get the new ones? Did you you buying as you go,
No,
or what was the?
so actually, I was like so inexperienced when I started. I always knew that having 2 pairs of trainers would be a good idea. So if your foot if you're running in the same shoes all the time, more chance of injury. You mix it up. You're giving your feet. You're working different muscles and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
My first 2 pairs of trainers were like a lightweight pair of shoes I'd run in Vietnam with, and the pair I was training with. They were just like old trainers. And then I kind of started buying trainers in sports shops as I went through America. When I got to Mexico, I realized that I couldn't really just pop into there isn't like a sports shop on the corner. You're in the middle of nowhere. So a friend of mine sent some messages to Nike and got some trainers sent. So I got like 3 pairs of trainers sent to me in Mexico. And then those trainers got me to the end of South America.
yeah,
And then, the end of Central America. And then another friend got in contact with Adidas. And then Adidas gave me 9 pairs of trainers to do the South American part. And so I took 2 pairs out with me when I came back from my sister's wedding. Then my mum sent 2 to Quito, and then 2 to Lima. And then luckily for the final stretch, a film crew came out to do some work with me in northern Argentina, and they brought the last 2 pairs of shoes. So that kind of got me through. It did add some headaches because well, might as well just say it. So basically, when I was at my sister's wedding, everyone was like, so it was like end of June. Everyone's like, so when are you going to arrive in Buenos Aires? It's like, New Year's Eve. It's going to roll in there on New Year's Eve. Didn't even know how far it was. Hadn't even thought about the distance. And I flew back to South America, to Panama, and then it took me like a week to get round the Darien Gap because I kind of tried to go by boat, failed dismally, had to retreat to Panama City with my tail between my legs. Ended up flying to this little village on the border of Panama and Colombia, then jumping on a speedboat and going along. By the time we did all that and started running, it was the 7th of July. And I looked at the map and I was like, 7,600 kilometers, 180 days or something roundabout. I was like, I did the maths and I was like, that's 43 kilometers a day, every single day for 180 days without a day off to get there for New Year's Eve. So I was like, but my mind was like, no, you can do this. So I basically, for the South America, I was like, you have a driver here. You're going to prove to everyone that you can. And then, day 10, I got injured, like just wear and tear. I needed a day off, and then got to Quito. My trainers hadn't arrived; they were stuck in customs. I wasted 3 days there, and then made the decision to carry on running and then take a bus back, pick up my trainers, and then so that was 5 days taken away from me. And then in Lima, they got stuck in customs again. So this like kind of dream of will I make it to Argentina by the 31st kind of became more and more like it's not going to happen. But especially when I was, as all these things were happening, I was like, I still have to run across the Atacama Desert, and then I have to run across the Andes. Like these aren't small obstacles you have to overcome. These are like the biggest obstacles of the whole trip. And now you're adding.
Yeah, these are two of the ones I want to ask you about as well.
Now you're adding this. You have to run more than a marathon every single day. And like I'm writing my book, and like it's so this number was just going up every week. This number was just getting bigger. You have to do 44 kilometers, do 45 kilometers. It was like increasing as I was failing to hit the number. But I was in my head. I was like, just focus on getting to the Atacama and then deal with that. Then you have to focus on the Andes, and then. So just keep going. So
what was it like in the Atacama? Like how hot was it? What was it like to run? Had you ever run in anywhere like similar to that? For a period of time like that?
So it's one of those ones. So as I was telling you, a lot of people before I went saying it's not possible. You can't do this. You can't do that. And it was like you can't run through Quito. It's 3,500, 3,000 meters. You can't run across the Atacama Desert. You can't run across the Andes. But as I when I was running, I would get to a hill and I'd be like finding it really hard. And it'd be like 600 meter hill. And I get to the top of the, like halfway up the hill and I go, so it's like, well, if you're going to quit doing this, how are you going to run across the Andes? Like, stop. You have to look at every day as a training lesson to get you over the big obstacles that are yet to come. So I did small deserts. Like when I was in Mexico, there was like 350 kilometers of desert. Also in northern Peru, there was like the Satura Desert, and there were all these deserts. So when I actually arrived at the Atacama, I did take stock, and I sat there going, when I left, everyone was telling me I couldn't do these things, and that was actually when I arrived. It was absolutely true. The person who started this run would not have been able to run across the Atacama Desert. I didn't have any of the skills or the mindset to be able to do that. But over the 12 months it took me to get there, I had developed everything I needed, and not only was I not scared about the Atacama Desert, I was excited because it was actually going to add a new sense of challenge to what I was doing. Because you've been running a marathon every day for like, it gets a bit boring. Like,
you're like, I could do this. It's no question anymore.
Yeah, it's like, so the Atacama is going to give me that kind of sense of like jeopardy. Like, will I be able to do it? Actually, it was difficult. I'm not going to say it was 700k to get to San Pedro de Atacama, and I did that in like 13 days or something. And you just got up in the morning and you ran, and any opportunity to take on more water, you just take it on. And there's lots of little places. I managed to find road houses to sleep in and that kind of stuff. And I did a bit of camping, and it was all quite exciting. Like running, when you're running and you just see nothing but desert in front of you, and you're like, kind of. But then you get bored, and suddenly there'll be some geoglyphs to look at and cemeteries.
Were there any close moments where you're running through the desert and you're thinking, okay, there's nothing I can see, and my water's running low, and like, fuck, I need some water? Like, was there any close ones?
There were close-ish moments, but nothing. I got to days where I was like, this is the last of my water. Like, I don't have any more water. But I got so used to like my rationing, and like if I needed to hold back, then I could hold back. And so it didn't, I'd love to say, yes, it was like this moment where I nearly died and all this kind of stuff. But I'm sure people hate me saying this, but when people come back from adventures, like I always go, did you nearly die? I was like, of course I didn't nearly die. Like, because I thought about everything I was doing, and I planned, and I kind of think like, if I'm not going to have water, how's that going to work? And da. And I always think that if people nearly die, it's because they obviously didn't plan it well enough.
I guess it depends how close you need to be nearly. Yeah. Yeah, human error, I
Yeah.
suppose. But yeah, it depends how close to death you need to be to qualify as nearly, right?
Yeah.
Because like compared to me during that span of time, you were probably very close to dying. Compared to me sitting in my office, you know, walking to work every day, like you were living on the edge.
Yeah.
You know,
And I got used to living there. So it was my normal.
Yeah. You were comfortable on the edge. That was your new comfort zone.
Yeah. No, because I remember getting to San Pedro de Atacama, having spent these 13 days just running bang, bang. And I thought I better take a day off before I run across the Andes and get some more food on. And I remember I just sat in my room basically most of the time, just thinking, I don't want to go out there. There's too many people. I can't deal with people. And I would just go to restaurants, eat food, and go back to my room and just sit there and go, look, I need to get running. I need to keep moving. I need to keep moving because this doesn't work for me anymore. And actually the idea of running up to 4,800 meters was way more exciting than just sitting in a town enjoying delicious pizza and ice cream.
Although it sounds good, but yeah, I can see where you... So tell me about the Andes as well, because that's another like epic one. Like obviously you can go up there and climb it and it doesn't sound that high, but to run through it, like, you know, that's where it gets, you know, it's crazy.
Yeah, it was fun.
So what was that like? And you had an epiphany up there, I think, right? You had like a bit of a moment where it all just seemed validated, like your whole decision, or am I getting my mountains mixed up?
No, that was
where you were like,
that was Aconcagua, I think.
That was Aconcagua.
Yeah, that was Aconcagua. But no, when I was running, you're presented with the mountains. They're like, you know, they're going to be like 4,800 meters. You know, it's going to be hard. But it was 164 kilometers or something from the town to the border, and there's nothing, like no shops, nothing, no food, water. All the water up there is far too alkaline, you can't drink it. And so when you're leaving, you're pushing your little stroller, and you have a choice, like you either stock up really heavy and do it in 4 days, or you go slightly lighter and do it in 3 days. So I decided to go with the lighter option. And
Alpine style.
Yeah, and you just kind of, it was so beautiful, like staggeringly beautiful, that the pain, even though I knew I could feel it, you put it aside because you knew you were doing something that no one had probably really done before. And everyone you met were like, we think people who cycle here are insane. But what the hell? I met cyclists and they were like, what? You know, you get to the top, you kind of revel in what your body's doing. I was running 60K a day at 4,000 meters, pushing a stroller with like vicuñas running around me. And it looked like I was on Mars. And it was the only place I cried, I think, on the whole trip. Because I was running along, I stopped to take a photo, put the camera down, I ran on a bit, and then I went to get my camera and it was gone. I was like, that's all my memories.
Oh no.
I was like, I've lost my camera. I was like,
oh.
And I was like, because I was so on the line with how much water and food I had, like the run back was going to kill everything. All my planning. And I was like, no, being Scottish, I was like, there's no way I'm not going to get my camera. So I just, luckily, a couple of cars came past and I stuck my thumb out. And this Mexican family in a pickup truck put my stroller in the back and they drove down the road and we found my camera just sitting in the middle of the road, like 5K back. And I took my thing out, picked up my camera, they left, and I think I started crying. And then ran the 5K back again. But no.
That was your punishment for losing your camera.
Yeah. I was like, be more careful. But it was kind of, it wasn't an epiphany, but for me, it was that moment where you're standing at the top of the mountain at like 4,000 something meters, and that's the highest you're ever going to be for the rest of your trip. So I had like 2,000K to go. It was in my head, it's like, it's all downhill from here. Like you've done it. You've done it. It's all going to be
mentally completed it.
Easy. Like I didn't realize that the last bit in Argentina was going to be horrendous, but in my head, I was just like, it was like a moment it was my first time. I was like, you've got this. Like, it's done. There's nothing going to go wrong.
I could definitely feel that the real mental victory. Yeah, you're at your highest point. You've done what, like 90% of your run by that point.
Yeah, and all the things that people told you couldn't do are behind you.
You've done it.
You've ticked them off. So I did that.
Like you'd have less distance to go than the first country, or not Canada maybe, but America at that point. Yeah.
So it was a good moment. And then, when you got trying to celebrate this in your mind when you get to the border, and you end up sleeping in a disused building with a Colombian dude who was burning plastic, and you're like, God, this is the way I celebrate a massive achievement. But because at that point I'd given up alcohol as well, so.
Okay, so you gave up. Talking of that, just while we're on that, because that was something I'd heard about you. I heard you saying on somewhere else, and I was interested to ask you about it. But you're not much of a celebrator. Like, have you always been like that, or when was that the big run that turned you into not much of a celebrator? Or
I don't know. So it was weird because I'll try and tie these things together. So when I kind of got into Argentina, I was standing at like the north of Argentina, and the end where the celebration would be was 1,600 kilometers away, and I had like 28 days to go. And I was like, this is like 60K a day every day to get to Buenos Aires for New Year's Eve. And I was like, and something just went in my mind. I was like, you're going to do this. So I just got up one day and ran 28 days, that a day off, 58K average, banged it out every single day, like down one-way like roads with no hard shoulders, with lorries just flying by, getting chucked off the road in extreme, like it was 40-degree heat. But it's just something in my mind was like, you will get there. And I think like when it comes to the celebration thing, I got the weird feeling like 2 days before the end, when I suddenly clicked and went, why the hell did you just run that really quickly? I know I had to get there to see my girlfriend was in Buenos Aires. Like, you've just, that whole time thing you just put on that, you could have had way more time to enjoy the places you had been if you'd slowed down. And then when I wheeled into the city, there was like my girlfriend, there was some guy who wanted to interview me, and there were 3 backpackers who I'd met in Quito, San Pedro de Atacama, and then happened to be in Buenos Aires at the same time. So they were there with like big posters saying things like, I want your baby.
I want your babies.
And, you run better than the government. And
yes.
And afterwards they were like, so how are we going to celebrate? I was like, going to get a can of Coke or something? We just went to a restaurant, had a sandwich. And then from that point on, because I'm not doing it for other people, it's just like I get to the end of something and I just like, done it.
Yeah.
So I've said I've done what, but I also have a kind of weird way of looking at adventures. Like the adventure I'm like, well, this wasn't at that point, but going forward, the adventure I'm on, I always have another adventure planned. So mentally, that's what I'm training for. So the adventure I'm on is nothing but a training for the next one. So therefore, there's no pressure on it. Therefore there's no reason to.
You're Bill Belichick from the New England Patriots. As soon as you finish one, you're on to the next. You know, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I guess. Do you allow yourself like a couple of weeks of lying down and chilling and just being like, and like thinking about it and reflecting, or is it just literally like the Monday after the weekend, you're back up and planning and training? And...
I bizarrely take probably more of a rest before I start. So I'll sit and go, Christ. Like my next adventure, if it goes ahead, will be quite a long one. So it'll be like, well, I might as well sit here for 2 weeks, watch movies, drink bottles of wine, and have a really get fat, because I'm not going to be able to do that for the next 2. So I sort of do it in reverse. I kind of take my rest before I start, because I know if you're doing like massive long distances, after a week you're into it, your body will adapt. So you don't have to like heavy train. So I train every day, but that's because it makes me happy. So, but like, it's just, I think, I just don't, all these people who put so much pressure and like organize these big parties when they celebrate at the end. It's like, who are you doing it for? Are you doing it for them, or are you doing it for you? Like, I just do it for me. Like, I don't really.
But I think that you could like, there could be some kind of personal celebration, something very like individual for you that you consider as like, that's my celebration. It's not a normal celebration, but that's how I celebrate.
Yeah.
Is there anything like that?
Yeah. Well, so I finished finished cycling across Australia. I went straight to the pub and had a pint. When I ran across Iceland, I literally ran down the street, got to a pub door, opened it. The pub that I'd sat in before I started, just ran in full kit, just sat around. I was like, "I can have a pint," and the guy just gave me a pint. I just sat down, and like, there's a photo. I've got a photo of me just sitting there, and I look so happy. And it's like that moment. It's like, and like I've been looking at videos of when I was running across the Scottish Isles recently, because I'm trying to put a video together. And there's just so many videos of me running with this ecstatic, like, this is why I do this. It's amazing. Like, you don't need the celebration afterwards. The celebration is the doing it. That's where you.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah, so you're just like, why? Like, you don't want to stop. Stopping's the bad part. Why celebrate stopping?
So you don't celebrate going out for a nice meal. It's not the same at all. But I know what you mean. You're celebrating. You're enjoying the experience.
So that is nice, because when I did Aconcagua, I did it with a friend, and like we did like 13 days sleeping in a 2-man tent together, climbing this mountain. And then when we're on the way back to town, I was like, "So I'll book into that hostel." And he was like, "No, we're not booking into a hostel. I'm booking us into the best hotel, and we're going for the best meal we can possibly have. Like, because we need to, that's what I want to do." I was like, "Fine, like, we'll go and do what you want to do. Like, that sounds really nice." Just my brain was like, "Let's go to the hostel and I'm just going to have it."
Yeah.
But and actually, I really enjoyed doing that. It's just not. It doesn't come naturally to me. So.
Yeah, you needed him to be there, wanting it for to celebrate, and then you can vibe off that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. With the run, and you mentioned as well, like, you train every day, like, because it makes you happy. I guess it's linked a little bit to my question regarding the run. Like, do you think it's more mind or body, like, that got you through that, and that takes to the training as well? Like, is it more for your body that you do that, or is it to keep a healthy mind? Like, where's that link?
I think the mind has got to want to do it for the body to follow. So, and the body will follow. And, being physically fit is not going to get you to the end of anything, because it's when it gets tough, when you're at the darkest places, it's the mind that pulls you through. And actually, I've noticed that one of the things I'm slightly apprehensive about my next adventure is the way I've adventured ever since I started. And if you look at the dates of everything I've done, it's like I've gone from one adventure to another adventure to another adventure to another adventure. And that fitness has stayed with me the whole way through those adventures. But also you build up a mental strength, and you have to exercise your mental strength as well as the same way as you do physical. So that strength is built up. And then because I've been in confinement, I'm getting a bit squidgy around the edges, but I'm also like, I've got a heated blanket, and I love bubble baths. And, so that kind of the edge of like sleeping in a tent on the side of a road, eating an instant noodle, wearing clothes you've been wearing for a week, that kind of thing is gone. And I know when I get to my next adventure, I feel like the cycling is, because it's going to probably be cycling. The cycling aspect, I got that. Like, I go out and do 50k a day or something, or sit on a bike for 2-3 hours. I can do that. The mental side, I really will have to work. I'll put more of a conscious effort towards my mental side.
You feel like you've lost your hard edge a little bit.
I've got soft. But that's not a bad thing. It's helped, I'm sure, during confinement, lockdown, whatever people are in, curfews, people will learn about themselves. And I've learned, like, a year ago, I was like, I'm going to do one more big adventure, and then we'll put it back a bit and do some smaller stuff. And this confinement has just maybe to be ridiculous. Stuff that makes you happy, like, sack off, like, this idea of not doing big stuff. I can't do that.
Yeah,
I need to.
Yeah,
even when I just jump on the bike and cycle for training, I'm like, I videoed myself yesterday. I was singing opera music going along this ridge somewhere, because I was just so happy. And it's that happiness that I look for. I don't care about the money. I don't care about the exposure. I don't care about anything else. It's that in the moment feeling of happiness.
And that's, I think, why you have to follow the road that brought you here. You can't, like, plan ahead and be like, that's going to be my last, or this is going to be my penultimate, or you've just got to go with it, right? Like, that's basically what brought you here. You did what you wanted to do. I guess if you could sum it all up, that's partly what it is. It's just because I wanted to. And so that's, at the end of the day, just keep doing what you want to do, right? Go one by one. And you've got a bit of unfinished business, a few places, I think, which I'm sure we get touch on in a little minute, but yeah, man.
Yeah, no, it
just
is
keep going
100%
day by day.
The problem is also, if you put a map anywhere near me, I'm like, ooh, I could
Have you got like a 3D globe that spins?
No, I don't. I probably should have one. I wish I had an office like Sean Conway, but no.
You'd be sitting there all day, like spinning it, just.
No, yesterday.
Just watching
yesterday I planned a 4,000 kilometer ride, another 4,000 kilometer ride, a 10,000 kilometer ride. I have no idea when I'm going to do these. But I was like, yeah, we could do that. And that works. And then, oh yeah, okay. So I've saved that route, and it's like, well, that'll be 20. I know what I'm doing. I'm going hiking in 2022 spring, so I can do one in the summer. Then I got one. So I'm like, too many adventures. And as you said, I've got some unfinished business to go and deal with. So
yeah. So like in terms of unfinished business, right? One of them is Madagascar. I think you rocked up there last year. Was it last year?
No, last year we weren't allowed to go anywhere. It was So 2019, I started the year, and I had like 6-7 adventures I wanted to do, and then obviously realized at the scale of the adventures I was doing in the time, I didn't have enough time to get all of them in, so I just was doing as much. So I went and climbed Aconcagua in January, and then I went to the Hitchhiking Trail in March, April, and then I did Iceland in July, and then I did Australia in September, and then I went to Madagascar in November. And
epic, yeah.
It was awesome, brilliant. Like I was thinking about it today, training for the next adventure. I was like, I think I only cycled 5 times in that year before I went to Australia and cycled across it. It's like, that's just...
Yeah. And that was the big 4,027, I think.
Yeah. But Madagascar was a lesson in pride, I think. So because
I want to hear about it.
I'd done all these things, and I've never not succeeded with what I've decided to do. So I was like, climb Aconcagua, done. Hitchhiking, done. And then I got to about 2 weeks before I went to Madagascar. I just went out for a run here to start getting out of cycling and into running. And I put my foot down a rabbit hole or a mole hole or something and went over on my ankle. And I go over my ankles all the time. I have injuries going back to like the Cape Wrath Ultra, Transalpine and stuff. And normally I just run it off. And this time I was like, oh, crap, I'm not running this one off. It was like 1 kilometer from my house. So I turned around and hobbled home. And I was like, right, I just won't run before I get to Madagascar. So I just didn't run. I packed all my bags and I did everything.
It was all set up and organized.
And I just like, no, I'll go. And someone said to me, like, Jamie, like, you don't have to go and do it. Like, if you're injured, just don't go. Like, no, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. And I flew out there, and then I got to the capital, and then I got all the way to the north, and I got to where I was going to start. And the day before I was going to start, I was like, I probably should go for a run. And I did a 9K run, and I was dead, and my ankle was agony, and I didn't have the 15-kilo backpack that I was going to have on top of that. And I was like, I went back to the hotel, and I was like, yeah, they were all right. Something in me just thought, no, just push on. It always works. It always works out. And I remember I kind of, because you're very alone in that moment. You're in the middle of an alien country, or you don't speak the language, and you're just like sitting there going, oh crap. And I phoned my brother in Australia. I was like, Johnny, what do I do? Like, I can't. He goes, just don't do it. So I went. He goes, well, you can come back and do it another time. And it's not like you've got a commitment to anyone else on this. It's not, no one's paying you to do it. It's not, you're not being sponsored to do it. Just do it another time. Like, you have to think about your health. And I just sat there and I went, yeah. So I just sacked it off. And it's one of those things you do pick up when you're doing these adventures. There's like a lot of people, I think, go on adventures and think the whole world is watching them. And in reality, no one is watching. Like, you're sitting there doing your thing, thinking, oh my God, everyone's so impressed about what I'm doing. And you realize that no one's watching you because they're all dealing with their own problems in their own lives and just living, and like they've all got kids and jobs and mortgages and stuff. The fact that you are, in their eyes, on holiday somewhere else, and not really following you. So that taught me that, one, people aren't watching you as much as you want or think they are, and
or worry.
And don't let your pride lead you down a passage where you're going to get injured. And if I tried that, if I'd actually started, it would have been harder to stop after day 2, because I'd have started, I'd committed. So by doing, and I now have spent a year thinking, and my ankles are, from some of the stuff I've done, my ankles are not as strong as they were when I did running the Americas.
Yeah, you must have wear and tear.
Yeah.
Like it's just.
And then,
I was going to ask you about that.
The Cape Wrath Ultra is the one that really screwed me up. Again, there was a little bit of a pride thing in that, but that's partly why, if you look at my adventures, I ran the Americas, then I ran the Three Peaks, then I ran Scotland, and then I sat there and went, I've already proved to everyone I can do this. Like, I proved to myself, why am I just doing the same thing again and again? And that's why I kind of went, well, let's try cycle touring, and then let's go camel trekking, and let's do trail running, like competitions, and then let's climb a mountain, let's go wilderness hiking. It's like, let's add some more threads to your bow so you can actually, if running is a no-go, then you can jump on a bike. And this year I added ski touring in, and it's like, just add more things and diversify to give yourself more longevity. And but there are other things. I said I would swim the Thames. I haven't done that, and I'm conscious of when I say I'm going to do something and I don't do it. Like, it doesn't get forgotten. It kind of gets written down. It's like, you said you would do this, you haven't done it. And not that anyone cares. I care, because there was something in me that wanted to swim the Thames. Like, I might change it. I might go and swim a cleaner river somewhere else.
I wouldn't blame you for that.
So rather than doing the Thames, I'll do the River Wye or something, or just something different. But I need to go, and in Madagascar, if I can't run it, I'll go and cycle it, because it's off-road. It's like the roads are not roads, so it would be off-road touring, which I haven't done before. So it's a new thing, but I will go back, and like, Madagascar is incredible. So
I bet it's like super tropical, so different as well. I expect, just from anything. Like, obviously, I've never been to Africa, but I bet it's super different to just Africa mainland as well. Yeah, it's crazy. But just back to Madagascar before we jump back into the middle of the Americas, like, how hard was that, like, emotionally, to actually go from, I know I probably shouldn't do this, and I know my ankle's probably not up for it, and having your brother tell you that, but how hard was it to actually kind of go over that leap and be like, you know what, and cancel it and officially kind of postpone it, ring people up and say, I'm not doing it, and to accept it in yourself, like, not this time? Was it hard? Was it?
It was hard.
Emotional?
It was hard. Luckily, when you're somewhere as beautiful as that, with some amazing diving, there, you can flick your attention to something else. And also, I also at that point was already planning to go climbing in Ecuador. So this is why stacking adventures kind of works. So it's kind of like, this one has fallen apart, and I'm not going to use the word failed, because I don't think I failed. This one didn't happen. No. So let's just flick your attention straight to the next one. And then, so that became climbing in Ecuador. It was climbing the mountains that I had run past when I did the Americas. Like, I'd run past Cayambe, I'd run past Cotopaxi, which hadn't erupted for years, erupted the day before I ran past it. So there was ash everywhere. And it's really annoying, because while I was waiting for that package in Quito, if that package had been there, I would have been standing at the bottom of Cotopaxi when it erupted, which would have been amazing, like, to be there and feel it. Yeah. And I missed it all because of a package was stuck in a customs building somewhere. Really pissed me off.
That hurts.
And then I ran past.
On balance, you still had a good experience.
I still, But then when I ran past Chimborazo, it's like the top of that mountain is the highest, the closest to space you can get on planet Earth, because it's on the equator, and there's a bulge. Yeah. So it's like that sowed seeds that I didn't really recognize at the time. But then by the time I got round to 2018, the end of, no, 2019, I was like, right, okay, we're going to go and climb those mountains. So I'm deeply disappointed that I'm not doing Madagascar, but I had an amazing time in Madagascar. And then I went on, I flipped the control. I went, right, let's go over that direction now. So it didn't hurt me too much. It probably taught me more. It taught me more that I'm allowed to fail. I'm allowed to not do something. No one's going to judge me.
Like life goes on, and you're going to pick it back up and carry on, and
The only dangerous
thing.
I bet
there was a. Sorry.
No, the only dangerous thing is for me is like if you do something and you're like, oh, I'm not going to do that because I'm injured. Suddenly makes it a lot easier to do that again. Like.
Yeah. So I bet that's why you were so hard on yourself, like in terms of allowing yourself to do it before speaking to your brother and whatnot, because you kind of got that subconscious saying, if you were making an excuse, like, I don't know if you're trying to get out of this body, like, you just wanted to make sure, do everything you can.
Because you don't want it to.
And I bet, like you said, no, exactly. Yeah. And I bet, like you said, if you started, you would have hopped to the end of it, wouldn't you? I bet. So in terms of injuries as well, like health and stuff like that, on the Americas, what were like the biggest things? On your vlogs, I think I saw mentions of you were pissing blood in Nicaragua, and you got some kind of parasite, like Giardia parasite.
Yeah.
Like, what's the story with these? And were these the worst, like, kind of health issues you had on the trip?
Yeah, so diarrhea you get quite a lot. I have seen my body do.
Obviously, running with that must be
disgusting.
I don't even know how you do.
Yeah,
that.
And it's also like you can get it. Like there was times when I think I didn't have a shower for 12 days, and probably during that you'd have diarrhea. So you imagine having diarrhea and then not showering and sleeping in the same clothes as you're running. So, and I had plantar fasciitis when I started. I had plantar fasciitis when I stopped at the end of La Paz, crossing over to Mexico, because I had a gap off, and I had it after my sister's wedding. So that was kind of thing. Once I had it once, I worked out how to deal with it, and then you carry on. So it's fine. And then
how do you deal with it? Just a brief little.
So I just went with do a bit more walking, a bit more warming up, and then I had 2 pairs of trainers and a pair of insoles. So one day, 1 pair of trainers, then I put insoles in, then I changed the next shoes without insoles, then put insoles in, and just changed the foot thing, and just do stretching, and but then in terms of proper illness, and I had a little bit of knee problem once, but it wasn't nothing to write home about. The weird one was with the peeing blood was Nicaragua. I was in Somotillo, the border town, and I'd heard through the grapevine of travelers there was a guy called Nacho who was walking around the world, and he was going to be in Chinandega the next night, and sort of 70k away. And I was like, right, if I can run 70k, I get to see this guy. So I woke up at 5 a.m. It was an embarrassing day that day. Woke up at 5 a.m. I was running along. It was like 7 o'clock in the morning. The sun was coming up, starting to get hot, listening to my music, and I started singing along to Enrique Iglesias' Hero at the top of my voice.
Nice.
And then this French couple in a camper van just pulled up next to me and just like, looked at me. I was in full verse singing, and I was like, it's a auto playlist thing. Like I didn't choose that song. And then I got to like kilometer 40, and I got a Gatorade and some melon on the side of the road, and then I was running, and then I needed to go for a pee, and it came out bright red, and I was like, whoa, that's weird. And then a kilometer later, I needed to go for a pee again, and that was like the most excruciating pee I've ever had in my entire life. And it was red. Yeah. And then, but my brain, like, it's weird. Like, my brain was like, but you have to get to Chinandega tonight. You don't have an option. You will carry on. So for 29k, I ran while pissing blood and in immense amount of pain, just so I could get to meet this guy, Nacho. And I met up with him. We had a great time. Like we chatted. And it was like the 2 guys doing roughly the same thing. And the thoughts, the worries we had, the kind of conflicts we had to work through were all the same. Like it was like, wow, like it's like meeting the only person who understands what you do. Because in the whole world, there's probably no one else doing what I was doing or what he was doing. It was like we happened to meet each other, and it was like, oh, it's amazing. But I kind of, the lesson for me from that wasn't from that experience. It wasn't from the pissing blood. It was the fact that he told me that he was taking a day off the next day. And I was like, oh, that's great. And in my head, I was like, I think I'll just keep going. I'd taken a day off the day before because I'd left my GPS in Honduras, so I had to go back to Honduras, pick up my. So in my head, I was like, "You've just had a day off. You're not allowed another day off, so you have to get up." And like any sane person would be like, "You're pissing blood, and the one guy who can sit and have a good day chatting stuff, have a beer with, is going to be in the town and is taking a day off." I woke up the next day, I started running. I got like 7 to 8K outside the village. Started pissing blood. Carried on. Still pushed myself on. And then,
how are you carrying on at this point?
And then I kind of I found a sign that said Pharmacia. There was a doctor. He gave me a jam jar, told me to pee in it next to this rose bush at the end of his garden. Like literally just took me to the end of his garden and said, like, pee into this. And then he came back with a computer printout and said, right, you've got a UTI and cystitis. And then it's like the weird things you like when you look back and I was like, oh, but I'm running to Argentina. Like, can I carry on running? And he was like, maybe take the rest of the afternoon off. Next day I ran 40K, and 2 days later I was boarding down an active volcano. It's like, it's just weird how your body, your mind, and your body just gets into this. It doesn't matter. You will keep going.
Like that's seriously impressive.
It's impressive, but it's stupid. Like I look back now, and I wish I'd spent a day with Nacho, and we'd sat and chatted and ate burgers together and had a really nice time. He was a really, really, really nice guy. But I didn't, because my brain was like, keep going.
Yeah. You were too on military time, even though you were never in the military, right? So you just
and then the Giardia was quite nice. So I had to get to Panama City for this for the flight, and it was really hard because I booked the flight when I was in Mexico, so I was like thousands of kilometers away, and kind of misjudged it a bit. And I think I arrived something like 19-20 days early on my flight. So right. And I was going to run to Panama City, then go across to Cartagena, and then down. So I arrived and I was like, looked at the map and I was like, well, there's another 300K to the end of the road. I might as well just go and do that. So I did another 6 days running down to the end, and had some of the most amazing experiences. Like most travelers stop at Panama City, so once you get past there, it's just like no tourists, and the locals interact with you in a different way. And then when I got to the end, Yavisia is just like this craziest town full of like loggers and that kind of stuff. You come out of the forest, the jungle. And when we were there was like a cockfighting competition. I met an American historian who was there about the same age. Him and I just went out and we just partied. We even got to the point, we partied so much we thought we were going to buy a cockerel and enter it into the competition. And then when we were sober the next day, we woke up going, that is the coolest thing. Like, you would never do that. That's horrible. But we went along.
So mean, but the fact you considered it means it was probably a great night of just ridiculousness.
At 3 o'clock in the morning, I just run like 60K, and he was, that's my excuse. But we went to the cockfighting because obviously it's what they do, so we wanted to see. And actually, it wasn't.
The culture.
When you think of cockfighting, you think of the cockfighting you see in Mexico with like the talons of metal and like birds ripping themselves apart. When you've got a bunch of people who own these cockerels and they're quite expensive, they don't want their cockerels to die. So it's like basically just watching two people holding like who's playing chicken, who's gonna go and get their chicken first. Because as soon as they see it slightly losing, they run in and grab their chicken. Oh, don't kill my cockerel. So the cockerels are all sitting around while two are fighting. The others are just sitting there. They just don't care. I'm not condoning cockfighting at all, but
no. But first to 3 pecks or something.
Yeah, it's like. But it was like one of my favourite photos from the whole trip from there. It's like 2 guys holding cockerels. Well, there's guys resetting this old like really analog clock for the timer. And anyway, the next day, me and the historian dude went for a tour. We got on a log boat and went out into the Darien for the day, and I decided I really wanted to go for a swim, so I went for a swim at this village, and then now that I look back at the video, there was a sewage pipe just up the river, and then I was on the flight back to my parents' house that my stomach suddenly went. I was like, what the hell's that? And then, for 3 weeks, it's just at home.
Oh, man.
Luckily, while I was at home for my sister's wedding.
Exactly. I was going to say, is while you're on the flight back, you really, like, imagine if that was like just as you're starting into the desert, into the Atacama, like all the
So, you learn to deal with it. It screwed up my stomach for the rest of the trip, but you learn how you adapt. You learn how to deal with it.
And you still deal with something like, is that still in you? Is there something still affecting you with that?
I've got a very, my stomach is definitely more delicate now than it was before. So I don't know if it's anything to do with that or just
don't know if it's directly related
or age. I'm 41 now, so.
Or just the fact you've like done some insane things.
Yeah,
like,
my stomach.
Your body's just a bit like, we weren't meant to do that.
Yeah, the body
just pushed all the limits, all the boundaries.
But it's when you look back at adventures, it's the times you were ill, the times it was hard. They're the ones you remember more than the good times.
Yeah. Because you remember what you got through. You remember like how you felt and how it was at your lowest, and you battled through. Like that's what we're talking of that. Like, what was your like either your loneliest moment or like the loneliest place, geographically speaking? But what was that like your loneliest moment, and what was your thought process at that moment as well?
It's hard because I used to be like the guy who would like parties. I'd be the loudest one, the one that'd be in the middle. I'd be like
Mr. Social. Yeah.
So it was kind of people were like, how are you going to deal with being alone? And it was actually when I ran out into the middle of nowhere, I was like, oh my God, I love being alone. I love being by myself. As I was told recently, I love being in control. Not in a kind of, I want people to do what I want. I just want to know what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And like, it's how I think my brain works that way. So I just need routine, and I need to put things together in a way that keeps me relaxed. So actually being alone is not a bad thing. I don't feel alone. I like being alone. I don't crave being around people. And I've been to places, but I've never really not been. So the Hayduke Trail was the first time I was properly in wilderness, and like you'd hardly ever see people. And I just absolutely adored it. Like I thrived off it. And a lot of people, when they talk about like the mental side of adventuring, they're like, how hard is it? Like, how do you find the strength to do what you do? And it's like, guys, you just don't get it. Like, the adventures are the easy bit. It's when I come home and I'm not doing the adventure, that's when I struggle. That's when the demons raise their heads and I have to be strong. It's not when I'm on an adventure. It's those times when you're just like, you take me to London, and it's like a playground of, I'm there, I love it for 24 hours, and then it's 48 hours, then I need to get out because it just destroys me.
Migraine.
So like, it's so confinement has been pretty much 12 months of like COVID. It's been 12 months of like mentally quite difficult for me. Not in a bad way, and no way as hard as people who have families and are living in apartments and high-rise buildings and having to worry about money and all this. But just from my personal, like in my world, it's been quite difficult.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I mean, the whole thing will have been difficult for so many people, and in every different way. Like you don't need to justify it and be like, oh, other people will have had it worse. Like everybody would have had it different, like there'll be rich people out there that have got everything cushy and, like the best family, the best friends, the best house, the best support system. And, they're allowed to struggle. Everybody can struggle, right? I'm sure there's been so many people that haven't spoken about to anybody about this. But I'm sure there's so many people out there that have struggled this year. Like, it's been so weird. I just try to not think about it too much. Really. But yeah, it's been a rough one. I suppose that links quite nicely in with some of the charities you did the Americas run for. So like you raised what, 26 grand, something like that. 25, 26,000 for, and you split it 3 ways, right?
Yeah,
Macmillan,
so I did it for Macmillan, WaterAid, and Calm. Originally, it was just going to be Macmillan and WaterAid because it's like cancer affects everyone in the world some way. Either you have it or you know somebody's had it, and so that's as a great charity. Macmillan do a great job. Then there was WaterAid. It's like the most important thing for me on this trip will be finding water. That is the constant thing in your mind is, where am I going to find water? So I wanted to do that. And then my friend Jo, she was doing a fundraiser for Calm, like literally a couple of months before I was about to leave. And I went along and I was like, the lady got up and talked about, I think at that time it was something like 11 men a day take their lives in the UK from suicide. I was like, what the hell? Like, I had no idea that many people were paying. And then I kind of looked at my adventure, like I was quitting my job and going and doing this venture because I was at the beginning of the spiral. It was going downwards. And like, no, I was nowhere near a dark place, but I could see the route, how I could get from where I was to a dark place. And I realized that I was able to I had the means and the support to be able to make a decision and do something. It took me away from all the things that were making me unhappy. It would make me happy. And then I realized that, maybe to raise awareness about this, using the adventure to do that, I could draw a parallel, which was I could justify in my mind. And I really wanted to do something. So that ended up being the last charity, but the one I cared for the most. And the great thing about it is that once you've raised money for a couple of things, it's very difficult to carry on raising money, especially when you've done 17,000 kilometer run. You can't really go and ask people to sponsor you to run a marathon. So the good thing about Calm is it's not just the fact that it's the money they need, which obviously they do need for the call centers and all this kind of stuff, but it's also just the raising the awareness about it actually does good as well. So you can actually carry on supporting them by not raising money. And and it's very sad to see that actually, the awareness of suicide and the acceptance of this kind of like it's a real thing has got better. You see everyone talking about it, but the numbers are still going up. And I think numbers through COVID are going to be even harder. Like, and I'm actually really fearful for the next 2 years, 3 years. Like, after COVID's done, there are a lot less jobs. There's a lot less certainty. There's a lot of young people that are not going to have the kind of benefits I had when I was young. Like, I struggled to get a job 20 years ago. Things were good then. So,
and on top of that, people will have lost touch with some of their friends, and they will have had conflicts inside their family or with their close friends. And I agree with you, it's going to be a rough couple of years. It is going to be difficult, and I suppose charities like Calm are going to be super important for these next few years. Like, it's going to be a big time for them. But I think as well, like, suicide, it's probably kind of still a bit of a taboo, isn't it? A little bit. Like, it's one of those things that people feel, it's such a sensitive and awkward topic in a way to talk about, because it truly goes to the heart of a human emotion, doesn't it? Of like what we feel. And, like, it doesn't get any worse than that, like somebody ending their life because they feel like it's not worth anything anymore, or they can't deal with it. So I think it's super important. I think it's a really good charity you chose to. Obviously they're all good charities, but I think that one's really, really cool, especially considering who you are, like this big tough Scottish guy who's running around the whole world.
I did told you earlier how I like bubble baths,
Right, see, that's exactly the thing. There's no shame in that.
No.
There's no shame in that.
I'm bubble
you could
baths,
be the biggest, toughest guy.
I'm bubble baths with candles, watching Friends with a glass of white wine. I'm like, if you're gonna do something, be an adventure or a bath, you've got to go through it.
Do it right. Like, I'm all for candles. Like, the bath is I don't bath that very often, but it sounds lovely. I'm not gonna lie, it sounds lovely. Like, but no, I think it's really important, man. I think it's really important. And like, are you going to be doing any more like expeditions with their name on it, or are you just going to continue to try and put their name out into conversation and put it out in the world and just get people talking about it that way?
adventures I do just personally, me going on an adventure, I normally make a t-shirt just for fun, and then I stick the logo of Calm on it just to get it out there. I've got no official relationship with them. I think for the next adventure we're looking at another charity, but just to make it relevant to what I'm doing. But I think I'll always support Calm going by. Hey, if it wasn't for Calm, I would have never got to hug Prince Harry. So I love Prince Harry. So
is it
what is he called? Prince Harry? No, the Duke of
I don't know what he's called now.
Hazard.
I guess I just called him Harry, but I mean, let's just go with that.
Yeah. So I got to hug him, so that made it. They gave me the greatest gift.
Did he put some emotion into it?
Oh, it was amazing. No, so actually, one of my little sister's friends knows him and had told him about my run, and then that was amazing. It was at the launch of their Heads Together charity initiative, where they had like 9 different charities, and I was on the Calm. They very kindly asked me to come along, so I went along, and the 3 royals turned up, and I have to say they were brilliant. Like, they had all done their research about the charities, right down to the last detail. And like when Kate came up to our table, she was like, "Guys, what you do is amazing, but I'm not going to spend much time here. I'm going to let William spend more time here while I go over to the postnatal depression place, because that's where I can learn more good." And by the time Harry and I were chatting, and he's like, "Wait, are you the guy that did that thing?" And I was like, "Yes, I was." And then he was like, "Oh my God, I followed you." And then he was like, "Oh, dude, we've got to hug this out." And I was like, "Seriously?" And he led me for a hug. And I thought it was just going to be like a hug. And then he just kind of hung on. And I was like, and then he kind of disappeared. And I said, "Did anyone get a photo of that?" Luckily, some lady had taken a photo and shared it with me. I think actually I was just tired. I thought this was a good way.
Yeah.
Just 10 seconds.
Just going to rest on you a little bit.
I could just switch off.
Or he was trying to absorb some of your energy, from doing all this running and stuff. He's like, if I hug this guy for long enough,
let's go with that.
I like that. Prince Harry he was looking to you for strength. Yeah. That's what it was. So as well, right? We were talking about mountains, and you've done a few mountains. You did recently Aconcagua. Right?
Aconcagua, 2000.
Aconcagua, yeah. I always get the pronunciation of that one. Did that give you a taste for it? Are you going to be like going out to do more now? Are you going to try and do some more mountaineering expeditions?
Yes, in 2000, that's the year I decided I wanted to diversify a bit more. And I'd never climbed a mountain before, so I was like looking at mountains. So I looked up trekkable mountains, and Aconcagua came up as like, it's the highest mountain in the southern hemisphere. But you don't need to use ropes and stuff. And I can't afford to go and do a tour. I don't have 4,000 quid hanging around to go and climb a mountain. So it was one of those ones that I had a friend, Al, who had done a couple of 6,000 meter mountains in India. And I said, like, "Do you want to come do this with me?" And he said, yes. So we could do it without a guide. And it took us 11 days to get to the summit. And we were very lucky with the weather. We did a really good acclimatization process to get there. But when I got to the top, it wasn't an epiphany I had at the top, but it was, me and I remember the whole of the trek up to like 6,700 meters. And then that last bit, can't remember it. It was like, you're walking so slowly, the air is so thin. It's like down at ground level, it's like at sea level, it's like 20%. And then up there, it's like 8.9% effective oxygen. But when you get to it's really weird because that's really difficult. And then when you get to the top, you can walk around normal. It's absolutely fine. You're not out of breath. It's like, but I remember just getting to.
Well, you're not.
Yeah, but you get to the top, and I remember just sitting there. I was like thankful that I had my goggles on because I was like, tears welling up inside me, and it was like because I'd been doing so many things I knew I could do, then suddenly doing something that was out of my comfort zone. I'm scared of heights, all this kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, I heard that on your vlog.
Yeah, so to be standing
you're scared of heights.
So to be standing at 6,900 meters, it's like overcoming a few things and doing it with a friend who we gelled so well together with. And like, if you watch the video I put up on YouTube, it was like we even had a moment where things weren't good, and immediately my friend Al called it up, and I included
because you were too fast.
Yeah, and I included the conversation saying it's important to see. But we had this conversation. It's like, I'm not feeling good because of this, and you're doing this, and why I'm doing it because of. And so we got through all of that, and then we're standing at the top of the mountain, and I just looked away. And luckily, Al blubbed away as well, so didn't feel too embarrassed. But you know, it's good to. It definitely, when you're standing on top of the world, and because of the opposite seasons, we were like the highest human beings on the planet. So it was like, that was cool. And then that sparked me to go and do like Chimborazo, Cotopaxi, Cayambe in Ecuador the next year.
Yeah.
And I will do more. Like, it's definitely on my list because
you've got a taste for some like 8,000 meter ones or anything like that.
Yeah, like I really enjoyed going up to Aconcagua. I less enjoyed going up Chimborazo. Like Chimborazo, Cotopaxi, Cayambe, you're driven to the bottom of the mountain. You kind of trek up to like, you're already at like 4,000 meters. You trek up to the refuge, or you're driven to the refuge. And then it's like you start climbing at night when it gets dark, like at midnight, and then you're back down in the morning. And then you go away. And it's like, it's great, but it was all dark. Didn't see anything. Like the guide didn't realize how quick we were going to be. It was me and the girlfriend at the time, you know. So we missed time to getting to the top of Chimborazo. We meant to get there for sunrise, but we got there at 5 o'clock in the morning. It was too dark. It was too cold to stay there, so we just turned around and walked back down again. It was like, we walked up in the dark and we walked down in the dark, and that's it. But when you do something like Aconcagua, it's like a 13-day expedition.
Yeah,
so you're relying on yourself and your partner. So I think I will do more mountains, but there'll be more Aconcagua style mountains rather than Chimborazo style mountains.
Okay, so like trekking peaks, like high trekking peaks, stuff like that.
And
so you could do like a Mera Peak, maybe.
Yeah, I'd love to go and do that. Love to. But I like, it's great. But I wouldn't climb a mountain to say I've climbed 8,000 meters, because that sounds stupid. But if there's a really beautiful mountain with a really excellent way of getting there, I'll do that because it's an experience. But there's no point in doing something just to say you've done it.
No, unless you get the urge inside you that like, I want to do that, and I want to do it for me, that kind of thing.
But if someone goes, this mountain is 8,000 meters and it's an amazing trip, let's go and do it, I would do that.
Yeah.
But if someone said, let's go and do this mountain so we can get to 8,000 meters, I'd be like, well, that doesn't make any sense to me. But you know, once you've done, like, I'm very lucky with how I get my kit, and like I've got some great feet. I work with Cotswold Outdoor. We have a great relationship, and that allows me to have the equipment. And if you have the equipment and don't use it, that's bad. So now that I have the kit I need to climb mountains, I should climb mountains, because I've got no excuses.
Have you done Mont Blanc yet?
No, it's like Mont Blanc's only 4,800 meters. Like, I'd love to do it, and it sounds ridiculous, but I've got a friend who lives, Kev, who I did the Transalpine with in 2017, and I'm hopefully going to see next week. We've talked about running up and down, like trail running it. So we're just trying to work out. But then they started putting permits in place and all this kind of stuff. So,
I know somebody that I think he did that recently. I think he did it maybe twice in 2 days. He's kind of in the middle of being like slightly endurance runner like you and a mountaineer. Like he wants to go and do Everest without oxygen and all this kind of stuff. Cool. So he's quite hardcore in that sense. But
what's his name?
But I think he also has done running up and down Mont Blanc. He's called Simon Ferrier-May. But if you want, I'll ask him, and I can kind of put you in touch with him if he did run up it, and maybe you guys can at least kind of bounce a couple of things off each other if you want. He's going to come on this podcast actually in a I haven't arranged it with him yet, but in a couple of weeks or a month or two.
I'll listen to that.
Yeah, cool. But he's planning to do Everest with no oxygen this year, but obviously with the virus, like who knows if it's going to end up being this spring. But yeah, I think he did 2 speed ascents. I don't know if he was running or just like power walking, but it was
quite often. Like if you do trail running competitions, most of the people going up are walking and then they run down. Yeah, that's kind of the way it goes.
Yeah. He's like you though, a little bit more though. I think in that he just did it for him. Like I think he just goes solo. He just wakes up early, just goes and just runs up it and runs back down and has a beer. And he's like, okay, done. Yeah. Do it again tomorrow if I can. Like, so yeah, it's cool. Let me think if we want to jump back to the big run here as well. A couple of like lighter questions to ask you as well. What was your favorite food and your favorite drink and your worst, the worst food and the worst drink, those kind of things that you had on the Great Run or any expedition, I suppose. But yeah.
I don't know if I'm allowed to point you to another podcast I did. I did a podcast where they had to run through your favorite menu. It was like doing your like death row meal. So that really made, so I actually recently did that, so I've kind of got it in my mind. But it was like things like ceviche in Peru. Really loved like fish cooked in lemon juice, like not cooked but marinated. And then like churrasco, I really got into the churrascos, the big like meat meals as you're going down through Peru, Argentina. Just simple things in the morning, like breakfasts. Like it's a really weird, going through South America, pretty much everyone will serve you eggs for breakfast, but they'll serve you eggs in a slightly different way in every country. So you'll like the eggs, like fried eggs on toast, and then you'll turn up to a different place. It'll be like scrambled eggs. Okay, so we have the whole of that country is like that, and then suddenly it's kind of little eggs that come in a pan with like croissants on the side, and you're like, so I always loved like the eggs, just like a simple egg, just like amazing. But I also had things on that trip. I had like iguana and what else? Weird foods. I had lots of meals.
What was iguana like?
It's a weird one. It tastes like chicken, but it has the texture of fish.
Okay, I would have imagined it being really tough.
It's really flaky. Really flaky.
Okay.
Do
you like frogs and snails and stuff out here?
Love
in France?
snails. I have had frog legs once. Like they snails. I love food. Like I love all food. I remember it wasn't on an adventure, but I remember I was in Marrakesh, and I was sitting in the Medina with my girlfriend. It was like in the evening, and I said, "Oh, well, when one's in a different country, one should eat the food of what the locals eat." And as I said this rather arrogantly, I looked over, and the next door Egyptian dudes were eating a sheep's head. So I was like, ordered a sheep's head, and they got delivered to my plate. And one of the things you had to do was eat the eyeball. So I was like, ate the eyeball, and I've never so nearly sick that meal. It was just horrendous. But food's like
that sounds it.
When you're running, you just eat whatever is put in front of you. You'll eat it because you know it's
constant. And then you're gonna get used to that, I guess, and it's just gonna make you less picky forevermore. Yeah. Tell me about as well when you're at home. So not on the expedition. I was jumping around here a little bit. When you're at home, I don't know whether this is partly because of the expedition or entirely because of the expedition, or it was something you were like this before. But I think you live very minimalist, right? Like you don't have a lot of stuff. Like, is that still the same? I heard you on some podcast or something talking about this.
When I got back from running the Americas, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I basically came back with no money, no job, no plan. And then I kind of did some adventures, and then I got asked to do a talk, and someone gave me some money, and then that brought some sponsorship, and then it kind of all came together. And then I ended up selling my flat and living in a camper van. So I put everything in storage. And that was great. So I went right down to the most minimalist way. But then as I started doing different kind of adventures, it got to the point of planning for an adventure was like, where's those boots? Oh, right, they're in that storage unit, and that rucksack. And you had to go and pick stuff, and it was like, right, I need a bolt hole somewhere where I can put my stuff so it makes it easier. So I bought a house in the south of France where I live now, and I have an amazing kit room upstairs with everything hung up, and it's all lovely. But it is dangerous. I love living in a minimalistic way. I love routine. I love eating. I do eat quite well. Either porridge or eggs for breakfast. And not porridge. I have muesli or eggs for breakfast, and then I have soup or salad for lunch, and then I have a proper made meal in the evening. But living at home, I might just buy that, and suddenly my minimalism has disappeared, and you work out damn, now I can't leave because this house is full of stuff, and if I move, it'd be a nightmare. I should have bought a 1-bedroom place, not a 4-bedroom place, but never mind.
Are you going to try and go back to it? Are you going to try and go back down that road of like, cutting things out, or you're just going to roll?
I don't think I'm going to cut things out. I think I'm just going to go on more adventures, because when you're on adventures, you are living that minimalist life. Like you, this is like going through. I'm packing for a trip now, and I'm like, so like, do I need these shorts? Like yesterday, I was like, I need shorts. Ridiculous. I've got my bib shorts, cycling, and I have swimming trunks. So when I'm not wearing my bib shorts, I just wear my swimming trunks. So like, and so it's like everything's like, how many different uses do I have for this? Like, it's got to be more than two, kind of thing. Have you heard of Katie Tunn? I think that's her name.
Katie Tunn. I don't think so.
She was on the Eden Project. I just watched one of her videos. She spent 37 days on an island in the Hebrides, and just living in a tent, like hovel thing, surviving off the. It's like, God, I'd like to go and do that kind of thing. Like, I like having a house now. It's nice. It also makes you feel a bit more normal. But I'd love to go and do that kind of, maybe go and do a retreat somewhere.
Desert island, doing a Castaway, Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
But on purpose.
Yeah. So I kind of like that's what.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So I do like I don't buy clothes. I don't buy. Yeah. I buy stuff I need for adventures. Basically, that's it.
Yeah, I don't buy a lot of stuff, but I'm really bad with the minimalist thing. I wish I could be better. Like, I feel so much better when I'm in a room with no clutter and everything's tidy and put away and there's no unnecessary shit everywhere. But I find that so hard, because even if it's just like a metal or a metal carton for a whiskey bottle that you put inside there, like I want to keep that. I can put stuff in that. That's useful for me. And like almost anything. Oh, that old watch, it doesn't work anymore, but it's quite sentimental. I don't want to throw it away. I'm terrible.
If you walked into my house, you could walk around and you probably wouldn't know who lived here. Like, I don't have personal stuff hanging out. I do have a little above my desk. I have like little things. So like, I got a turtle shell I picked up when I was in Mexico, and I have an empty casing of a rifle from when I ran through Pendleton Army Base. I picked it up off the ground. I keep little mementos. I've got the lighter that I used for the whole of running the Americas. This lighter did also 17,000 kilometers. I bought it in Canada, and still lights. So that is, to me, is one of my greatest belongings. I love this lighter. So you
are sentimental after all, Jamie, huh?
more about things. But not things of value, things of meaning, I would say, which arguably is value,
but value, you're in your value rather than monetary. Yeah, for sure, I get that. Hey, so I think almost the last thing, one of the last things I want to ask you about the immense run, right? Or would it have to be the immense run? It could be, well, this was the immense run. I can't remember which country you were in, but it was the Hosteling International
I got kicked out
situation. Yeah, you weren't very happy. I want to know like how that affected you. Like, did it affect you? Did it affect your whole focus on the trip, or was it just like okay, pissed off, shout about it, done with that, put it away, move on? Where was your focus?
Generally,
did you dwell on it?
If something pisses me off, I'll shout about it. I'll be like a petulant child for about an hour or two, and then I'll forget about it. So that was annoying. Because I'd found this hostel, and it's in the north part of San Francisco, in this beautiful park, like beautiful area, and that kind of area had a special meaning for me because when I've been in my gym in London, you could do videos. So you're running to videos, and it was that park. So I'd been running that park while I was in London training, and then suddenly I was there, and it was it. And then I arrived. Okay, I probably looked like a homeless person pushing a thing. And I'd just been down. The first thing I did was I went and bought a 6-pack of cider, stuck it on. And then I had my camping gas and fuel for my stove and all this kind of stuff. And I arrived, and then they just I checked in, and then they were like, "You got alcohol?" And I was like, "Why wouldn't I?" And they got camping fuel and this, that, and then they just kicked me out. And I was just like, "This is insane!" Like, what?
And you'd unpacked already.
I said, "I've just run here from Canada." And they were like, It's like, I know that doesn't make me special, but it just made me tired. Like, I just want to
and human.
I just want to put my bag away and just want to go and explore the city. But, you know, these things all, everything leads to something, and it's something you learn. Like, yeah, it pisses you off. You're angry. But then I ended up moving to another hostel, which was actually the hostel, international one in the town, where you're allowed to drink and you're allowed to have all this stuff. It's just that one you weren't. And then I hooked up with a couple of cyclists that I'd seen, a Dutch guy and his girlfriend. And I went out with them that night, and then they met up with one of their friends. And then she was like, "Oh, you don't have to stay in a hostel. Come and stay. I'm staying in the Hyatt Hotel." And I was like, "What?" And she goes, "Oh, like, we don't have, nothing needs to happen between us. Just come back." So I was like, "Really?" So I ended up sneaking into the Hyatt and slept in the Hyatt and went to bed and had like a full breakfast the next morning, like blagging that I was staying in the hotel. So it pissed me off, but then the things that happened after made it better. So if I'd been in that hostel, none of that would have happened, and that's like now a fun memory. So
yeah, or if they'd just let you stay, then you never would have got to do all the rest of it. So yeah, has a way of working out, doesn't it? Who were some of the most amazing like humans you encountered on specifically this trip, but any trip? Like if there's just one or two particularly memorable people, or that they did something like a gesture that you just like, wow, that's going to stay with me forever. Like, have you got anything like that?
Yeah, well, there's countless people on like a day-to-day basis who would like let me stay, or you know, when you're in Peru, just people are amazing. Like I remember I was in Peru, and I was running along the road, coming to a place called Nuevi Chipotle or something. And this guy came up on a motorbike with his girlfriend and was like, "Who are you? What are you doing?" I was like, told him, he goes, "Where are you sleeping tonight?" I was like, "No idea." And he goes, "Follow me." And then he just sat in front of me for 5K, took me into his town, and then took me around to he rang the doorbell, and this woman opened the door and was like, "Can this guy stay here?" And she was like, "Yeah, all right." And she emptied her office, made me a bed, and I slept there. And like him and his girlfriend took me out for lunch, and then the lady cooked me that night, and then gave me breakfast the next morning, and then I went off, and I was like, no idea who these people are. And then there was obviously Kev, the guy who gave me the trip across the Sea of Cortez. That's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
You know, and his story was the reason he had the affiliation with me was because of Kong, which we talked about, and he was a firefighter at 9/11, and his job was to pull the bodies out of the rubble, mainly the other firefighters. And then he got PTSD, and he tried to take his life. And he obviously managed to get help, and then he was on his boat, and he was like, so we spent this week together, like having a proper a moment together. So that was really nice. That was treasured.
You still in touch with him, by the way?
No, like I have emailed him a few times, but it's really difficult. There are so many people who are so kind to me, but if I tried to keep in contact with all of them on a like proper basis, it's not possible. And just like every
it's life, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's difficult. Like I'd love to, but every adventure is I'm not very sociable anyway. So my friends who send me messages will normally have to wait a week for me to reply. You probably had to wait quite a few times for messages from me organizing this. But so I'm not very good at that. But I start an adventure, it opens a chapter, I live it, I throw myself into it, and I kind of close it off at the end and put it behind me and then move on to the next one and remember that as its own little thing.
Yeah, in a bubble.
Yeah, but I've done, 33,000 kilometers of adventuring around the world. I don't think I've had a single problem with a human being. Like, they've all been nice to me. It doesn't matter where I am in the world, doesn't matter how much money they have, what their jobs are. People have always been nice. And it's just, yeah, it's really, really special.
I'm trying to think that whether that says more about humanity or more about you as a nice guy.
Unless you're being a real ass, people are going to be nice to you. People don't wake up in the morning and go, I'm going to be a dick today. They wake up going, I'm going to live my life. And if they see someone in need, they generally will try and help. That's what they want to do. So, yeah, I know. I think humans, no matter where you're in the world, they're all the same. Like, everyone will try and help.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I definitely think there's some bad ones out there. You got a little bit lucky to not encounter any bad ones, right? But still had an incredibly lucky experience with people. It's amazing.
Yeah, I know. Actually, one thing.
But I agree. Yeah, go.
Well, I was going to say, one of the things I really worried about was that I did the 17,000 kilometers in the Americas, and I came back, and the next thing I did was running. It was the first thing I did. This one? Yeah, it was cycling. So I got back to London, and it was January, freaking freezing. And I was like, my little sister had moved from London to Edinburgh. She'd taken my bike with her. I needed my bike back in London. So I was like, well, I'll go and get my bike. So I went to the train up to Edinburgh, got my bike, strapped a tent on the back, a couple of panniers, and then cycled to London. I was like, there's no way I'm putting this on a train. After what I've just done, I'm cycling this. And I can remember being really in my mind thinking, will British people be as nice as the rest of the world? And I was really, really happy with how, I remember just on that, I went to a market and I was buying a pork pie and a brownie. And the guy kind of looked at the bike and he looked at me and goes, what are you doing? And I'm cycling from here to here. And he's like, you don't need to pay, just have them. And I got to a little old lady, I was trying to find somewhere to camp. And I found, I'm very respectful. I don't like just camping on people's land. I need to ask permission and stuff. I found this lady and I knocked on her door and she opened up the chain and I was like, hi, I'm very sorry. I was like, I see there's a field opposite you. Can I camp there? She opened the door up and she was like, took me over and she let me camp and then she was bringing me cups of tea and just people are nice no matter where you're on the world. As long as you're not interfering in their life. So.
That's nice, man. No, it's good. I bet we rebuilds my faith in humanity a little bit.
All these trips. The problem is the one thing you have to deal with, I don't know if other adventurers feel it as well, but is that you end up in a massive deficit because I go out into all these countries and I accept all this kindness and people doing things for me and it feels so good. You've got to do it back. And it's like trying to, all the people who had warm showers, I went and stayed at their houses. I'm embarrassed, luckily because of COVID, but I need to do a warm showers at my house. I need to invite strangers into my house. And I'm very conscious of that. I know I don't do it enough, so I need to.
But you're doing stuff for charity as well, so it's not like you're just purely taking these things and giving nothing back to the world. At least you are trying to give back
a little bit. But I need to give more back. It's something that you need to. You need to.
I think everybody should try and do more. I don't do enough, so yeah, I know what you're saying completely. Hey, tell me, on your expeditions, again, specifically the Americas, but just all of it, what's the most unexpected turn that you've had? Not literally a turn on the road, but what's the most, you 1 minute you're thinking this, your thought process, and then 5 minutes later, just everything is spun on its head. What was the biggest, most unexpected, just bizarre, spontaneous moment or occurrence?
Oh God, that's
on the spot.
I haven't been asked that question. I'd have to say that it would be just one adventure by itself, the whole thing, which was Mongolia, the camel trekking 2017. From the moment that was even presented to me to the end was just a wondrous shit show, I would describe it as. So I got a Facebook message from a girl called Angela who was doing big walks around the world, saying that she was working with Carl Bushby, that if you could get him on your podcast, he's amazing.
Yeah.
And he needed some people and would I come? And I never met these people. And I suddenly found myself going to the embassy to get a visa. And then I found myself in Ulaanbaatar. And then the camels weren't trained. They hadn't a route. The infighting, we had it was something from Lord of the Flies. We had two groups, and then we had people recording you when you were talking, and we got taxied back, and one faction was not speaking to the other lot, and then they were going to take our camels, and then suddenly this, and then this guy didn't come, and then we were on the trip, and then someone would get kicked by an animal, and then we'd end up sleeping in a hotel for a week in the middle of nowhere, and you turn up to a hotel in Mongolia. And you knock on the door and go, hi, have you got 3 rooms and can we store 10 camels out the back? And they're like, yeah, fine. And we'd have camels. You just lots of, and you'd be like in the middle of nowhere and like, we need hay, and then suddenly a man on a horse would just turn up, and you're like, where have you come from? And then he'd come back with 2 bales of hay, and just like every single day in Mongolia, I was like, this can't get any weird. And like wood, like there are no trees, so you need firewood. So the best place to get firewood is walking along the actual roads and picking up wood that's fallen off trucks. And so we would do that, and they were hysterical. Like you'd be picking up wood, and then this big jeep would pull over. 6 guys would jump out with like a thing of cups and a massive bottle of vodka, and you couldn't speak to them, and they couldn't speak to you. And they just open, like, hand out the glasses, put the vodka in all the things, and then you'd all go, "Wait, cheers!" Whoa, bang, do another round. They'd all jump back in the car and drive off, and you'd be like, "What?" And then this would happen, and you'd go back to the camp, and you'd be shit-faced, and everyone else is sober, and you're like, it's -20, you're drunk, sleeping in a tent with 8 other people, go, what?
This is what you live for, Jamie.
Yeah. And then we adopted a dog for like 10 days, and the dog would we couldn't feed the dog because we only had enough food for us. And the dog basically lived on every time one of us went for a crap, the dog would follow us and then eat the crap and then come back, and he would like,
oh no.
It's just like, it was just one of like those beautiful adventures that I look back and just so much went wrong.
Yeah.
But I look back and it's so fondly. I really do.
Yeah.
It's
like an old school adventure.
Yeah, I was so glad I got to meet Carl Bushby. I don't get to speak to him enough, and he's about as anti as I am. But that guy is, to be in the presence of someone, you know what he's done.
Yeah, well, you mentioned him on another thing, like a podcast. I did check him out.
For someone, he crossed the Bering Strait and was the first man to cross the Bering Strait with his partner. That is insane. He was jumping off ice floats, swimming to the next ice float with like a gun, like shooting polar bears. You're like, Jesus. And I got to spend time with him, and that's just like the most wonderful thing in the world.
What was he like?
I know that I have got some weird, peculiar, like, to hang out with me is difficult. I know that. And hopefully that's one of my endearing qualities. And it certainly is with him. Like, he's quirky, but in an amazing way. Like, I loved my time with him. And luckily, there were 2 factions grew, and I was in his group, so I was happy with that. So
So he's just walking around the world, isn't he? He's still doing it. He's still walking around the entire world.
Him and I like to do everything as quickly as possible and as much mileage a day as possible. That's what I get my kicks out of. This guy's been walking around the world for 19 years. Like, he's still going. It's like if I hadn't finished within 2 years, I would be like blowing my brains out, because it's like, he's doing it, and he's an amazing guy.
Yeah.
He's still got to walk across Iran, and I'll be there.
You said that for a second.
When he finishes, I'll be there.
Yeah? That would be epic. When do you think he will finish? Do you think it'll be this year?
I wouldn't, because I know Carl, I wouldn't even dream about guessing. Because he might take a massive detour and do something completely. Well, he'll come up with some harebrained plan that'll be genius. So he's Yeah,
but I'm definitely going to keep an eye on him. Since you mentioned him, you alerted me to this guy.
He's talking at a festival this weekend, the Armchair Festival.
Oh, really?
It's an online thing.
Cool. Okay, cool. I'll have a look. What was I going to say? Yeah, you were just saying about how you get your kicks from as many as you can do in a day, right? As many K. What's the most you've done in a day on a bike and or on foot? Like, what's your 2 kind of like intraday?
They're not massively big, actually. Like, so a lot of people could say, "Oh God, ultra! I'm going to do 100."
Just over your average.
Yeah, people are like, "Oh, I'm going to do 100K run." Like, what would you do? And like, I don't know, I've never run 100K. How are you doing that?
Yeah.
No, so my longest, when I was running the Americas, I ran 79 kilometers. But that was, I'm pushing 40 kilos through a desert. So that was the longest.
That's like what, roughly 2 marathons on top of each other. Yeah. That's hectic.
One people I like to kind of say, I probably ran like 4 marathons the 4 days before, and probably ran 4 marathons afterwards. Like, that was just one day.
And the 4 months before.
My longest consecutive was the 28 days, not taking a single day.
The final stretch.
Yeah, so that. And then I did a competition in the UK called Endure 24. As you do it, I was in a pairs team where you basically, there's a 5-mile track and you have to run round it as many times as you can in 24 hours. And me and my partner, I think I did 85 miles, so 137K in 24 hours. And we weren't even pushing ourselves. We were just kind of doing it for fun. So I'd quite like to go back and like do that properly.
Yeah.
And then on a bike, 250K across Australia. I was on a fully loaded bike, and I will not deny that I could have stopped well before that, but I knew if I pushed it to the 250, I would get to a pub and I could have a pint. So I kind of was like, in my head, I was like, just keep going. Just keep going. Just keep going.
It's an epic distance to travel in a day on like just powering it from your own bike.
And for anyone who says, "Oh, you just miss so much," when you're in the middle of the outback of Australia, you ain't missing anything. It's all exactly.
Yeah, I've never been. Yeah, but from what I can gather, 50 miles could go by and it'll be exactly the same.
Just how many dead kangaroos you're going to see. So that's probably they're the distances. The longest I've gone without when I did the Hey Duke, I was on the road for 36 days and I washed once. That's kind of a big one for me. I like that one.
That's mature, that is. Yeah.
And running, when I was running, didn't change my clothes for 12 days. So running and sleeping, a marathon a day, 12 days.
So it's just your second skin by that point.
I walked into a shop.
It's like stuck to you.
I walked into a shop and I was like, what is that smell? And I realised it was me. So,
just leave the door open on your way out. Let me ask you one question that's going to sound really familiar, right? So what motivates you, and more importantly, who do you do what you do for? I heard that on your TED.
So it's easy. I do what I do for me. So
I thought you'd be well rehearsed on that one. I know you do. Yeah.
What motivates me is it's a difficult one to really put into words as much as So a lot of people, and you've probably heard me say this before, but a lot of people think they look at adventurers and go, "Oh my God, look at that person! He's so positive and motivated, and look at that, he's going out there and doing it." And it's not. It's like most of it's like, for me, I kind of describe myself as a dirty power station that I as a human being, like lots of people, have lots of negative thoughts about myself and self-loathing and not feeling I'm good enough and all that kind of stuff. And what I do is I've learned to take all that negative crap, try not to let it affect me on a day-to-day basis, and then I kind of put it into this power station and use it to fuel my runs. And it's like, take all that negativeness, and it's like, that's why I'm proving it to myself that I can do these things. And it's taking all the lack of self-love and putting it into creating something that I'm proud of. So it takes the negative thoughts to create a pride in myself that allows me to basically balance it out in my head.
Yeah.
I'm not just like a guy who loves nature and goes out running. It's my way of dealing with my inner demons.
Just naturally wake up with a smile every day. No, you're like everybody else, but you've managed to find a way to turn your negativity into fuel.
Which is why I'm struggling a little. I'm not struggling massively. It's just you just notice changes. Like I used to get up like that in the morning. I used to love getting up, and now I lie in bed thinking, why? Like, does it really matter if I get up at 7 or 8? Like, it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
But I do know that if I get up, like I got up at 6:30 the other morning, and I smashed out stuff for 3 hours before I had breakfast. And I just like, I need to be doing stuff all the time. And so for what motivates me is just basically trying to become a nicer, better version of who I am. But I only ever do it for me. But it's nice when you hear people say, look, that inspires me. Or I want like a guy from, I've never met him, but a guy from Holland sent me an email saying, I saw what you did. You went and bought the same stroller as me and ran around Holland. And I was like, wait, like he saw me doing this and like he did it. And that's why like I spend a lot of time making videos and trying to do kit videos and trying to do anything to try and share some information. And like I always tell myself, like I do it partly because I love trying to learn how to edit, But also, like, if you get one person watches that film and says, that inspired me, like, sweet, it's worth it. And one person, you change one person's perspective about what they want to do, or and that's all good. So I do get a kick out of that. So and I love, like, kind of like helping.
You must be inspiring a lot of people from your vlog, for sure. Like, did you started that when you started the run? Was it really weird just like to start filming yourself all of a sudden, or did?
I'll tell you, like, anyone who's dreaming of doing a massive adventure, go and do a small adventure first. Learn how crap you are at filming stuff, and then do your big adventure. I've got, like, I can't make a documentary about my run because I've just basically got a whole pile of crap videos. Well, like, I'll start a story, and then obviously I get caught up and I never finish it. And it's all my face. I never take anything of the stuff around me. It's like, my God, you can't make a video with that. It's just crap. So now I, like, have a much more kind of, like, I've got to film myself. I've got to film around me. I've got to film the trip. I've got to film them. I'll actually consciously think you've got to come up with B-roll to be able to do stuff. So yeah, I wish I'd done something small beforehand, but that wasn't the situation. And, you know, and like, maybe it makes it easier for me. Like, 6,000 people watch one of my videos. I'm like really happy. And then you go on to see some guy on YouTube. Like, this is one of the girls I find the most inspiring on Insta. I'm really into skipping at the moment. And there's a girl called Lauren Jumps. She's amazing. And she started skipping at the beginning of lockdown, and she is phenomenal. She now has like 220,000 followers. I run cycled 33,000 kilometers through some of the hardest places over 6 years. I have 7,000 followers. It's like, oh, like, she skips. but I know why. It's because I'm addicted to her videos, and I now buy her skipping ropes and, like, trying to do her tricks. So I think sometimes I realize that what I do is not always relatable.
Yeah, I can see what you mean, to like the average person, because they think it's out of their possibility. Even if you're trying to tell people that it's not and you can do it, most people would still, no matter how much you tell them that, are going to think, but it's just still, it's not too much.
I'm a 41-year-old white guy with a beard and a ponytail doing adventures. There's quite a lot of us, so.
One other thing to talk about is, it's just, again, something I heard you talking about to somebody else, and it caught my attention, and it's kind of related to what we were just talking about, your motivations. Like, the correlation between the motivation that you had to do it, like how up for it you were, and the success, like the happiness more than success. I don't really mind too much about that. The happiness you achieved afterwards. So, like, was it worth it in that sense? Like, in the big run across the Americas, what was bigger, your motivation to do it, or your happiness after doing it, because of doing it? And in general, what do you think about that?
There was very limited happiness after I did it, and that was why I was a bit down on the last 2 days when I was coming into Buenos Aires. And that's probably why I haven't written about that bit yet in my book, because I don't quite know how to interpret it yet, even after 5 years. But I very quickly realized that the moment I finish an adventure, the happiness ends. Like, I don't have a residual. Like, I feel great that I've done it, but I need to find the next thing to move on to. And I think this is something that is in my life. Like, I don't sit and marinate in stuff and, like, think, oh God, that was amazing. You know, I enjoy it in the moment, and it's the moment that brings me that fulfillment and happiness. I do feel like I'm happier as a human being for having done it. And the experiences I have on those trips they are who I am now. That directly affects who I am now and how I view the world, and I am happier. But it's definitely in the moment that I have the happiness.
Are you the same with, like, I know you haven't had, or from what we've talked about, you haven't dealt with much failure in terms of, like, you know, things going really badly wrong and you being miserable afterwards, but are you the same with negativity? Are you able to just go, like, you know, that's done?
No, like, I view the fact that I haven't finished my book as a failure. And I know that the reason I haven't finished my book is it's really bloody difficult to write a book. And I struggle, and I sit, and I will like do the most ridiculous stuff, so I don't have to write my book. And so I see that as, and there are so many things that I could do more of, and I do stress about that a lot. And I think that at the moment, I think it's probably partly because of COVID and curfew and all that kind of stuff. I'm not sleeping very well, so I hardly sleep. So obviously my brain is whirling at 100,000 miles an hour, like with frustration and with realization that I'm not doing what I should be doing. But I can't sleep.
Yeah.
And then because I can't sleep, I can't do what I want to be doing. Like I sit down to write my book, and like my eyes are sore and tired. And so, yeah. I don't know if that answered your question, but.
Yeah, are you still going to get to it as well? The book? Are you still going to you still working on it? You are still want to do it?
It's going to be finished. Like I've read. Oh no, sorry. A book is normally about 80 to 90,000 words. I've got 130,000 words written on my computer. Okay. So I've got nearly double what I need. I've got 10 days left of Ecuador and 28 days left of Argentina, and then I'm done. It will be done before the end of March. I'll have the full prose book that just needs to be cut down, and then I'll get some friend to read through and go, "Oh, that's boring."
Yeah. So do you think hopefully publish this year, or?
I don't know. I would love to be.
I don't know.
I might be disappearing for a few months, which means things like that.
Yeah.
Mysterious.
Mysterious.
So that kind of thing gets put on hold, but
yeah. And I'm going to try and kind of draw people's attention to where, like, if there's anybody listening, hey, mum, dad, to where they can, like, help you to get your book made. So you're still looking for people to support.
Yeah, on Unbound, which I kind of, because I haven't been writing my book, I haven't been pushing that out. But now
because you don't want the pressure.
Yeah, now I'm getting to the point where, like, actually maybe that pressure will push me to the edge. So it will get done. So I can feel a bit more confident about. So I think I'll wait till I finish. When I finish writing the book, I'll start. There's a little video which outlines what it's going to be about, and I'll start pushing that out. And there's some good things on the thing. Like I'm quite to get 500 quid. I've kind of said, like, if I can get 50 people to pledge £30, then that's 1,500 quid. I'll give £1,000 to a winner to go on an adventure. So nice. I'll only get 500 quid, but it's 500 quid more, and someone gets to go and do 1,000 thing. Because I would happily put some money towards this book anyway. But if I can get money from other people in small donations and then give a lump sum to someone to actually go and do something, then that I would feel better with that, rather than just
definitely
self-indulgently paying for my book to get published. So.
Yeah, if you could do something good at the same time, it's always a bonus, isn't it? Yeah. But no, I'll try and put the link somewhere. So hopefully, like I say, the one or two people that have made it this far can head over there and hopefully help you to get it, help encourage you, help push you to get it done. Because I'd like to read that as well. So look, one of the last things I want to ask you, I didn't have much written down, but this is one of the few I did have written down, is like, if you could send a message to every single individual person on Earth, right, every human on Earth, if they, whatever it may be, whether they've got a mobile phone or if they, it's just going to appear in the sky, however, what would you say? Just a brief message to everybody. You're completely on the spot.
I'm completely on the spot. No, but it's like, I think it would just like be nice to each other.
Yeah,
like there's nothing. Like life is. If everyone is nice to everyone, then the world would be like. There will never be a point where everyone's nice to each other because jealousy and all that kind of stuff. But if you see someone and give them a hand, like just doing something, the smallest thing, can make a huge difference to someone's life. And as it being the recipient of so much kind of niceness. That's not a word, but generosity. Then you know how much it affects you and what it allows you to achieve. That if you can look past what someone looks like or what your preconceptions of that person are, then you actually can be able to help them with their dreams and that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, for sure. And the tiniest little bit of help from somebody, like it might be nothing to somebody to give this tiny little help, but to the person receiving it, it could be huge, right? I fully agree with that. I think, everybody can just be nicer.
Yeah, but also I'd say ignore social media. But apart from me, like myself. But
Yeah.
I think there's so much pressure on people these days with that people really take it to heart and spend a lot of time thinking about what other people think of them. And I actually, like, apart from that, most of the time people don't care about what you're doing. And actually, if you just set about being the best version of yourself you can possibly be, then other people will gravitate towards that. They will gravitate towards your commitment and perseverance to like bettering yourself. For those around you, then that's a positive thing. I'd also say to everyone, watch the video that got me into doing what I do was Alan Watts' What Would You Do If Money Was No Object? Which the whole premise is like
Alan, what's his surname?
Alan Watts. And the whole thing is like, if you could do anything in the world, what would you want to become a master of? Yeah. Do that. That's basically his video. And obviously,
so yours was running an adventure.
Mine's running an adventure, and my best friend showed me that video in a pub in London just before I quit my job, and that gave me the nudge I needed. It was like, what is it that you want to do? Like, what? Obviously, if it's a negative thing, then park it and find something new.
Don't do it.
But if you just if you want to open a cafe, or you want to learn how to make the best cupcake, or you want to help people who need assistance in a certain way, then just do it. And like, the idea is, and it's true, like when I saw this, I didn't know I made make a penny out of being an adventurer. And now, like, I have a wage. It's like, this is insane. Like, it's insane. But I've never deviated from, I do what I want to do, the way I want to do it.
Yeah.
And it's by sticking to that has allowed me to have a bit, I know it's not going to last forever, but it's lasting. And I'll enjoy it while I can, and then if I have to...
Exactly, enjoy it while it does last,
Yeah, so...
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But look, anyway, I think I've taken enough of your precious time when you can be outside doing it. Oh no, we're in lockdown. Yeah, like, we can stay another few hours. No, I've taken enough of your time.
Tonight I want to go out because I went for a walk at 6:15 the other day, which we're not allowed to do, but it's a track.
Yeah.
And I like to see where the deer are coming out. So I want to go out tonight with my camera and see if I can. It's just like, look, deer have become my obsession during lockdown. Go for walks every day. And I count the deer. How many deer did I see? And like, I think there's a correlation. The more deer I see, the happier I am. So, and when I get a good photo, it really makes me feel like happy. I just
fulfilled.
Graceful, beautiful animals. So I'm gonna go and try it.
Nice. All right, dude. Well, I'm going to send you a message later or something, just with a few bits and bobs. But again, thank you for this. Very appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. Really good fun.
All right, man. Take care and enjoy seeing the deer.
I will indeed.
Or the deer.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have plural deer. Do you?
Yeah.
Enjoy that,
awesome.
buddy.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Jamie.
Yes.
Take care, man. Bye.
Thanks for listening to that conversation with Jamie Ramsay. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and encourage someone you know to have a listen. If you want to follow or help out Jamie or this podcast, all social media and website links are in the description. Thanks, Jamie, for the time, conversation, and for being my first. Thanks, Harmony, for turning our chat into an episode, and thanks to Rod Simba and the Regulators for the music. Be nice, be happy, be cool.